Hello, this is Michael Adams, and this is Nothing But the Truth, One Man's Journey to Find It. It is January the 11th, 2016, and we are going to have a roundtable discussion on the flat Earth, and we are going to have Jonathan from the Morgile, the YouTube channel, and Globebusters. We also have David Weiss, and David has a ton of things that he's in. He's got the Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole, his YouTube channel, website, podcast, I believe. He's at Ball Earth Skeptics on on Facebook. And then we got was turning out to be a regular and a friend, becoming a close friend, I consider, somebody I admire and respect a lot, Zen Garcia. And, of course, Zen, he's got all sorts of things going on. He has, Zen, Endeavor Freedom YouTube channel. He's got the FallenAngelsTV.com. You can find him on
.tv.
.tv.
Yep.
Is it D? Okay, my apologies. And, you also have your two radio shows. Tell us about that as well. So we don't.
Yeah, I do Truth Frequency Radio, Saturdays, 6 to 8 p.m., Secrets Revealed, and Wednesday evenings on Revolution Radio, Momentary Zen, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern.
And plus you've written 9 books, and your 9th book is pertaining to the discussion of tonight. David, did I miss anything? I'm sure I missed a couple things about what you're up to.
I have the Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole podcast that's available on iTunes and SoundCloud. My Facebook pages are Ball Earth Skeptic, all things flat Earth, and Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole, of course, and then also Exposing the Big Three, which is exclusively 9/11 Sandy Hook in Boston. And everything is linked up on deepinsidetherabbithole.com.
Thank you. Jonathan, did I miss anything on your end that you need to be?
Nope. Just my YouTube channel, the Morgile, and that's pretty much it.
Okay, great.
And the soon coming book.
Yeah, the soon coming book one day.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be a very interesting show. How it will turn out, I guess it's going to be a free flow discussion about the flat Earth and many of the aspects that pertain to it. I just want to mention a little bit about this week. I know that there's a kind of an upset and a stir with some of the things that Tiger Dan is some of his recent videos. And first of all, I've reached out to Tiger and invited him to come on the show to express his point of view. But I just want to say that I do appreciate a lot of what Tiger Dan has done. I think everyone on this panel does as well. And I think that whatever the misunderstandings are, I hope that they are resolved soon. Because really, I understand some of the frustration that Tiger Dan is feeling, as we all are, in trying to suss out the pieces and try to make sense of our world. Certainly the big issue, as far as I see it, is 2016, and we still have doubts and misunderstandings. Why are they hiding the world that they're hiding from us? I think it shall be a good conversation tonight to talk about that as well. Anyways, with that, what I was thinking about doing is starting out and talking a little bit about Jonathan's recent 3-part video series about one of the major problems that we have. Whether you're a flat earther or a globalist, it doesn't really matter. We don't have accurate, reliable information as far as how our world looks, and it is very frustrating. And for many of us, our hands are tied because we don't have the access, the ability to retrieve this. But it seems to me that certainly in 2016, the powers that be, whether it's the Jesuits or Freemasons or whatever it is, the ruling elite, surely must know this, and they're hiding this from us. So I would like to we'll start out with this, John, if you're game. Let's talk a little bit about your recent video series that you just did.
Yeah, sure. And first off, it's only just like 30 plus minutes. It's like slightly more than 30 minutes, but I'm bound to 15-minute chunks. And so the third section was literally like 2 or 3 minutes long. And so I just put a song in the end there too. So it's just a 30-minute video because it was really just sort of synchronicity that I was working on, just looking at some different ways to construct the matrix that we use to map out, relative distances, because you can change certain variables and come out with totally different maps, and they would still technically work in a navigational sense. But so I was working on this at the same time that Tiger Dan, comes out with a video calling all flat earthers who sort of subscribe to, or I guess you could say push, an azimuthal equidistant map matrix where the Antarctic is sort of, around the outside. He says anyone who says that is a liar because of a flight from Sydney to Chile in 13 or 14 hours or something like that. So to me, one of the things I've said for a long time is that we don't have any accurate maps in a sense that they accurately represent the face of the Earth, like a snapshot of the face of the Earth. Even the Mercator projection, which is sort of a conventional map that we still use today, just the simple nature of it. It's the nature of the way the map is made skews relative sizes of continents and relative distances between continents the further you get from the equator. So it's by definition it's a cylindrical conformal map, and so by definition it's more and more skewed up to infinity when you get to the polar regions. So it technically could not possibly be an accurate representation of what the Earth actually looks like. I think one of the things that we'll touch on, however, is that Mercator may or may not have been a flat earther. I think it's very possible that he was. And in fact, he did sort of come out with, I guess you could say, a flat Earth map with the North Pole in the center. So, this is a big issue for the flat Earth community, and it's something that we've been sort of kicking around and trying to figure out for a good long while. You have to have a map and you have to have a model, and the AE map sort of does work for, demonstrating how this stuff sort of works or how we think it works. We know for sure that the Earth isn't a spinning globe. That's for sure. But I just think it's a little bit naive to try to ascribe what the sun is doing, to take what the sun is doing and to sort of use that to prove what the Earth looks like. We really don't know what the sun is doing. And just because, say, it's 12 o'clock noon here while it's midnight there, then we sort of, we have to put these 2 points on the opposite ends of the North Pole. And I don't know, it just seems like maybe there's something that we're missing in that regard. So, it's to me, it's still sort of a big mystery what everything actually looks like. It doesn't look like the Mercator projection, I don't think. Maybe it does, but I just really don't think that the Mercator projection accurately represents the face of the Earth. And I don't think the azimuthal equidistant does either. The AE map, which I'll just simply call the azimuthal equidistant map, I'll just say AE because it's easier. But the AE map is most correct at the very center, and it gets less and less correct the further away you get from the center. So really none of the maps we have are accurate, and I just don't, I think it's great that Tiger Dan's looking at this because it is an issue. It's something that we need to solve, but to take that and say, anybody who says the Antarctic is on the outside or anyone who says the Antarctic doesn't exist is lying. I don't remember anyone saying it doesn't exist, but anyway, that's my 2 cents on that.
I'd like to jump in on that. He did come out and aggressively say that all flat earthers say that Antarctica doesn't exist, and that that's just unlike him. I don't know him. I've seen his interviews. I've watched his him on Patricia's show. I've watched all his videos. I'm a pretty good judge of character just by listening to the way people talk and the way they express themselves. And he seems like a very loving, religious, kind man, intelligent. But his argument of, these flights exist from South America to Australia, and they obviously fly over Antarctica because, look, here's pictures from windows. Well, that's not proof at all. I mean, there's sightseeing flights that I've seen video of where it kind of looks like the same thing. You know, who's to say that those pictures are from these flights? I took his information with the airport codes that he says. I put it in Expedia. I put all different dates in there, and it says we've searched 400 airlines, and there are no nonstop flights. Now, I know that there are some listed somewhere because I've seen the result come back before, but who is to say that airline technology has it's probably increased since the 1960s, although they haven't really shown us much. And who's to say that they don't have aircraft that can go 1,000 miles per hour, can break the speed of sound? The only thing they'd have to deal with is excessive fuel usage and a sonic boom, possibly. Maybe they found a way around it. And if you're going to fly, you know, if these maps are semi-right, I don't think that they're actually right, and Antarctica is the plane that surrounds our thermal pocket, who's to say that they don't fly south, fly over the ice, fly east or west until they get over to the other side, and then fly north to their location?
Well, I don't even think that's necessary, though, because if you look at even the model that Robotham was describing, and, you know, I don't just blindly agree with everything Robotham said, but, you know, he did make a lot of really excellent points in Zetetic Astronomy, which I've only read the original edition. I haven't read the expanded editions, but the model that he was describing was looking at you know, historical navigation, practical sailing charts, and the captain's logs and that sort of thing. And if you measure the distance between Australia and South America, it's only about 8,000 miles nautically, according to the model that Robotham was describing, which actually, if you add up all the distances of these far southern ports, you get, I think it's 22,000 miles at the average 45-degree latitude, which is just too darn big for a globe of the given proportions. So, you know, it's very good proof right there that there's something wrong with this conventional heliocentric model. But it also shows that such a flight could be done even at an average of 500 miles an hour. It would only take about 16 hours. And I think that by flying not exactly west, because remember, in Robotham's model, or the conventional flat Earth model, west is a curve. It's not a straight line. And so if you could just basically do a straight line instead of a curve, I could see them shaving off some of that distance and doing the flight comfortably in 13 hours.
Jonathan, I could agree with that 100%. The point I was kind of trying to make was Tiger Dan's videos were not like him. That was not, I'm not saying it wasn't him, it was unlike him. It was the opposite of who he is. So
yeah.
I would like to interject here a little bit, because I think I might have part of the reason why he is behaving the way he is. And I also would like to have Zen express this as well, because we both come from, Christian backgrounds. And one of the things I've noticed from my own experience since I started doing this and started reaching out to folks like you, having you on my show, and expressing my conviction that the world is not a ball, and that I don't believe in the heliocentric model, and that I'm in line with the flat Earth geocentric model, is that I have had a lot of attacks from quote-unquote Christians. Now, I understand this might not be a very good reason for why he did it, but I'm trying to explain it just simply what might be the motive for why he pushed back so hard, because he's probably getting the snot kicked out of him like I am, and I can tell you, I'm sure that Zen's going through the same thing, and this issue and other issues from quote-unquote people that call themselves believers in our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and behave the complete opposite. And I think it's this bogus argument that's thrown at us constantly that we are an embarrassment and that we are a distraction and that we are causing division and that we're making Christians, quote-unquote Christians, look like a joke. I don't know if that makes any sense to you, gentlemen, but I know from my own personal experience, and I would like to have Zen comment about that, and whether we agree with it or not, that's, at the end of the day, I would like to have Tiger Dan on to talk about it, because I think that my gut hunch and only for my own. I mean, just today, attack from somebody that I wanted to be on my show that has a lot of great information about that other topic, about the Jesuits and their connections with Hollywood, and who have nothing to do with me because of the flat Earth. Because he, even though I didn't want to talk to him about that, I wanted to talk about his work. He didn't want anything to do with me. I'm not going to mention his name. And then the day before, yesterday was another somebody who was a regular guest on my show who wanted to have anything to do with me. And says that you should call your show instead of Nothing But the Truth. What do you call it? Nothing but there's a search for the truth. He said you should call your show The Search for the Truth. You know what I mean? It just went on this rampage. So I wanted to have Zen to share his experience, and I know at the end of the day this is not the explanation for it until Tiger actually talks about it. But I do think that part of this is the amount of social pressure in his own community about this. Does that make sense, gentlemen? And then Zen, would you comment on that?
It's snapping because of pressure. This is, to me, just seems like something more. But before I got cut off, I just want to put about one last point was I totally agree with Jonathan that, we don't know which map is right, that they're all kind of wrong, but the only thing that we know for sure is that we don't live on a spinning ball. I mean, that's beyond a shadow of a doubt. So I agree wholeheartly.
Yeah, what I was going to say is to people, sorry to interrupt, and this will just be real brief, but to people who think, that this is a joke and who call you a joke for talking about this, the joke is the world is actually a stationary plane, and the joke is actually on you. You're the punchline of that joke, and that's why it's so ironic, because people take this pretentious attitude like, we're so stupid and we don't understand physics, but if you actually take the time to look at this instead of just dismissing it like we're all programmed to do, you actually find that there's something to this because it's actually the simple, honest-to-goodness truth. So, yeah.
I know myself personally that I was extremely hesitant, as I'm sure that many of you were, when many of my listeners were sending me videos and asked me to look into the flat Earth, that I completely thought it was farcical and that I was hesitant to do so. But then being open-minded and not passing judgment on a topic that I had not looked into and investigated, I decided to approach it and to, spend some time thinking I was going to be able to debunk it in a very short time. And then when I realized that basically the science actually confirms that the Earth is stationary and that it's not moving and it's immobile and fixed and that there's no measurable curvature, well, those two things in my mind just completely blew the whole belief system as far as the heliocentrism, and that we're spinning once daily as we annually orbit around the sun, completely out of the water. And then from that point forward, I wanted to know more, and I wanted to come to understanding as to how it was and why it was that we were led astray, and how all of us have been indoctrinated into a belief that we never even second guess that we are actually living on a globe, and that the Earth, the shape of the Earth, is spherical, and that we're part of this solar system with these other 8 planets, and how all of us have been lied and led astray and bought into all of that. And so, it's only been since last June or July for me personally on this. But the thing that really brought me to understanding was being able to apply the flat Earth as model to decrypt the Book of Enoch, which is about my last book. My 9th book was about this particular topic, the flat Earth as key to decrypt the Book of Enoch. But I know that in the last year, in the journey of coming to understanding on all the things that are connected to this as revelation, that this is so huge that I'm still in process of reassessing, evaluating, and reconfiguring all that I had once thought that I knew. And that goes to, as far as the universe, what are planets, wandering stars, the enclosed dome system, the firmament, whether it's solid, is it glass? I mean, there's so many questions that have to now be investigated and that we have to open ourselves up to. All of us, we are all trying to reassess and to make sense of all of these things and come to an understanding which can help to justify what we see in world as far as our experience of being here, part of the existence, part of the creation, what we see every day as far as the sun moving from east to west, the moon also spinning in that way, and then trying to shake out all of the lies that we are told daily by NASA and science and by these PhD degrees and all these professional opinions. And so all of us are trying to come to better understanding of what is really going on in the world. The one thing that we do know is that it is most certainly not as they told us it was. And so, and also, as far as NASA and all the lies that they have put forth and perpetuated and propagated, they do not deserve any benefit of the doubt. We most certainly did not go to the moon. And the whole thing is that they are still, they just released an article not even long ago talking about how the Van Allen radiation belts are, even to this day, an impenetrable barrier for them being able to go out into outer space, So there's a lot that we don't know, and there's a lot that we are trying to come to rediscovery on, because a lot of this has been lost and forgotten, forbidden, and hidden knowledge, and that the ancients, previous to the embrace of the heliocentric model, that they knew a lot of things that we no longer accept as fact. Things like the magnetic mountain, this whirlpool at the very North Pole, and that this particular magnetic mountain could be the cause for the lunar eclipses. We most certainly know that because some lunar eclipses have occurred when the sun and the moon are still up in the, above the horizon, that it's not the shadow of the earth, because the earth is always below the circuit of the sun and the moon, that there's something that we don't understand that causes and comes into play with these lunar eclipses. And so there's a lot of things that we are still trying to determine and make sense of. And the whole thing with the maps, yeah, that's one of the things, the flights and so much. I mean, this is the mother of all conspiracies. It is so all-encompassing, so grand, so massive in scale, that it's absolutely mind-blowing to those of us that wake up to it, that they were even able to perpetuate it for even 10 years, much less the last 5 centuries. It's absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah, that's certainly how it appears. When you look at people like Mercator, who, again, he's responsible for the Mercator projection that we're familiar with, which is basically, the cylindrical conformal map. Then he also did one that's, I guess you could say, sort of like an azimuthal or equidistant, or like an AE map, but it's got the north in the center, and everything's sort of wrapped around the north, like you're sort of used to seeing in the AE map. But it's got some features that I think are interesting, like the north being a lot larger than we think. It's in other words, the 90-degree latitude isn't just a single point, or possibly isn't a single point. It could be like a ring, and that would change the matrix of the map. But yeah, I think there's definitely something to that. And I think that's sort of the reason for the whole Antarctic and the Arctic treaties. So, yeah, I'm definitely with you, and that's very, very well put.
Thank you.
Before we carry on to another topic, David, would you like to continue with this, or?
I just want to mention that, we're told lots of different things about Antarctica and the North Pole, and the truth is we don't really know very much. It's still hasn't been confirmed that there's 24 hours of light, on December 21st or during their that time of year for them. There's, the Admiral Byrd story. How real is that? What
Right.
really happened? And I say, that we have to be careful as truth seekers not to believe everything. Like the space shuttle when they're talking about when they had the tether, 15-mile tether, and it broke, and then they're watching it and they're seeing all of this, extraterrestrial life or interdimensional things going on, and then the announcer didn't know what to say, and they're like, they're busted, they're feeding us this stuff. They're feeding us the every like the pictures Richard Hoagland finds on Mars. Look, they didn't notice there's a squirrel and there's this and there's that. That is just to take truth seekers and make them run with it. These are red herrings that are really programming us, and they're using us to spread the lies.
That's a good point.
I was going to say a little bit
about it.
Oh, go ahead, David.
Sorry, I was just going to say that it's sort of ironic because, if an average person hears the phrase flat Earth, that's going to seem like the biggest red herring. It seems like the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard. I'm sorry. I mean, that's just the way that it seems. But you're right. I mean, to me, if you revisit that tether footage from NASA, it looks like probably particulates in the underwater pool that they're in. But anyway.
but again, that was done on purpose. They didn't screw up in the pool. They wanted us. They want to feed us. There's a famous thing where they showed a shot from supposedly the space station where there was an ET craft, we'll just call it a little speck of light, and then something shoots up from the ground, and they're like, this is proof that we have, scalar weapons and that we're fighting off aliens. And NASA happened to have the live feed on, and then it immediately went dark, and then they deleted it. No, that was done, that was just fed to us, and then we're running with it. And, I used to believe in these things. I'm like, look, we've got this. But now that I know that NASA is not real, it's all just fed to us. And, so even when something is fed right to me that lines up with everything I believe about whatever conspiracy, false flag, hoax, or whatever, I have to look at it and say, who's telling me this? How do I know it's true?
Yeah, it's very true. It's funny. You have a very valid point there, Dave, because I look at my own journey. And like a year and a half ago, I never even heard of heliocentric or geocentric, and they were never talking about these two particular models, were they? They were long before you ever get to the point of even becoming a little, I guess, more sophisticated in the issue. You're bombarded with all these make-believe stories that are clearly there as a form of social programming, if you will. Would that be the proper term? Somebody just dropped off. That would have been great. Hopefully he'll come back on. If he doesn't, I'll bring him on.
I'm back.
Okay, cool. So I don't know if you heard what I said before he dropped off, but it seems to me that you have a very valid point here. That long before I ever, and I think all of us have this experience. Tell me if I'm wrong. That we went through this gauntlet of all these fake stories before we even heard about the heliocentric model or the geocentric model. Is this correct?
Yeah, I never knew there was a debate to be had. I mean, we're all pretty well raised under the assumption that it's a foregone conclusion, and there is no debate.
We all had the same, experience learning about the flat Earth. I had my rabbit hole show. People sent me stuff. For 6 months, I just deleted it. I refused to even look at this idiocy. And then finally, somebody convinced me to look at something. I was like, wait a minute, that's crazy. Let me see another one. And then I basically went underground for 2 weeks trying to blow it up, and the deeper in the hole I went, the worse it got. And then I came out the other side saying, this is unbelievable. And then I kept quiet for a couple of months because I was afraid it was going to discredit everything I've done on 9/11, Sandy Hook, and Boston. And then I realized, you know what? It's gonna, but I don't care because the truth is the truth.
Yes, that's the way I was too. And a few other things is, like they have all these supposed people that come out and say they were part of the Mars Space Command, and just recently they had, I believe it was a major general. He came out and he was talking about how we have all these United Defense Forces, the Space Command and all this. And they are doing exactly what David is saying. They're releasing these stories. They're trying to perpetuate this mindset. And we also know that this whole heliocentric, as far as being tied to the strong delusion, that there's one more chapter yet remaining. Even with what Werner von Braun had told to Carol Rosen, that the next trump card, the next domino to fall, is that the ancient aliens coming from way out there, that they are the creators of humanity. And what I've learned as far as these so-called extraterrestrials or ancient aliens is that they are coming from beneath the earth, and that they are here, have been here, and they're trapped here. They're not from way out there. They're demonic entities, fallen angel, angelic type powers, principalities, these rulers of darkness. But the next thing is that they are our creators, and that's why we can't find the missing link, that we're not, because they jumped the gun on evolution. And so many people are ready and willing to buy into that and to bow down to these Anunnaki gods.
Think about it. I mean, look at the programming. What are the biggest movies out there? We have, it's all about Star Wars, Star Trek. It's all about aliens and perpetual war and gods coming, that are smarter than us. Right. So they're programming us with this. Right now, it's all about war because the Rothschilds fund both sides of every war, and the people that are controlling everything. War keeps us in a disconnected state of fear, disconnected from God, disconnected from our power, and that rules. And once we're tired of this, they're going to have a bigger war. They're going to fake an alien invasion. As far as you said that the extraterrestrials are they come from below us, they're demons. I'm not even sure we're on the top layer. We might be below another layer. What's above the firmament, if there is a firmament? What's outside of as far as we can go? Maybe there's other thermal pockets. There's all different theories. I'm not claiming any of them to be real, but if you think of the word extraterrestrial, those are extra beings from this terrestrial plane that we're on. If there's extraterrestrials, where I kind of lean towards there's probably other very humanoid-looking somethings out there that they come from this terrestrial plane. They're not coming from specks of dust in an infinite cosmos.
There's so much to learn, really.
I would like to bring up. I'm doing exactly what I said I wasn't going to do. But this would be the last thing that I really interject too much about. But the International Space Station supposedly is shutting down, right? There's rumors out there that the International Space Station is shutting down. That NASA is supposed to have nothing planned for 5 years. That all these rumors are out there saying that they're closing shop.
I heard why they're closing down. It's Globebusters has exposed them, and they have to close down.
Well, no, I probably some of that.
I can see that.
Yeah, I can see it too. Yeah. I mean, they're pointing out the
I have got some good stuff on them. There was one particular that I thought was pretty funny. The ISS was floating around up there, or whatever it is they're doing, but the sun was shining directly into this camera lens, and from the angle of the sun, or whatever that light is up there, I don't even know if it's real, but the angle of the light shining into the lens casts a reflection of the make of the the manufacturer of the camera And apparently somebody, did some research, and I think it was Dicon, D-I-K-O-N or something, some kind of camera, but shouldn't have been on there. So, yeah, we find there's lots of little good Easter eggs to be found throughout the Globebusters ISS watch shows. I mean, there's just so much, and wouldn't surprise me, but isn't SpaceX going to be taking over?
Yeah, that's another thing I wanted to talk to you, gentlemen, about that, is SpaceX, and we talked maybe a little bit about Jaron's recent video, but also the fact that what is this all about? What's going on? It seems to be more theaters. That's all they're giving us. And then this whole thing about the International Space Station and its closing, and NASA pretty much doesn't have anything really in the next 5 years. But that's right after they said they were going to be doing something with Mars and all this other nonsense. It's just all playing into their, and this is certainly speculation, but it seems suspect to me why they're closing shop. I don't know how you gentlemen feel about it, but it seems a little suspect. If it is even true, what are they doing? What are they really about? Is this what Zen talked about, where they're going to fake the alien stuff now because it's not working, and they realize they're starting to lose a grip on their false narratives and their fairy tales?
If I was writing the screenplay for them, I would have an alien attack the space station and kill everyone on board to start.
Right.
It'd be a blockbuster, I'm sure. I think you get all the screens out there on Central Park and all that, and everybody would show up, right?
They would certainly garner sympathy, just like with the shuttle explosion, and how all of those individuals are still alive and living out their lives and teaching in other places. And yeah, that would be do it spectacularly, and you can just end it and turn the next chapter, and also increase your funding for whatever other projects you decide to perpetuate and propagate and lie about. And we know, like, even with the Mars rover missions, all the things like that they found, these alien skeletons or whatever it is that they keep bringing forth, because there's so much of it, as far as the Mars rovers, and that they found an ancient book on Mars or whatever. It's just crazy.
Oh, wow. with the Mars rover technology, I don't know how there's dead cell phone spots just outside of town. I mean, they're able on this little thing so far from the sun with little solar power panels, are able to transmit, pictures back to Earth when it doesn't make any sense. I mean, you just put 4 of those on the planet, you're done. On satellites.
Right, and if you look at it logistically from sort of the radio frequency wave perspective, it's not even possible to transmit radio frequencies the distances they claim to, especially like if you look at things like Pioneer 10, which allegedly went to Jupiter, through the asteroid belt to Jupiter in the 1970s, which is 360-something million miles on the computing power of a Nintendo Game Boy, basically, or less, no pilot, and somehow beam back, using 1970s technology, images of Jupiter through the asteroid belt. And if you look at the timetable of that, supposed journey of Pioneer 10, the timetable doesn't add up. So, yeah, NASA's just been lying their rears off about everything.
Right. You made the comment, radio waves, it doesn't make any sense. I have no way of proving this, but it sure makes a lot of sense to me. Is radio waves don't travel forever; they break up. Sound waves, certain sound waves will travel farther over distance, but then it just disperses. Like earthquakes. The way they tell where the epicenter of an earthquake is there's 3 different waves that come out of an earthquake, and over time they travel at different speed and they break up. Some of them don't go as far, and they measure the distance. So the farther you are away, the less severe it is, and some of the waves don't even make it to the end. And I say it's the same thing with light waves. And the light doesn't travel for billions and billions of miles. It only travels for maybe a couple thousand miles. And, the only light that we can see is within this very small world that we live on. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I tend to, subscribe to the model where instead of infinite space, you just have a possibly infinite plane, the physical plane here on the ground, and there could be other worlds. I'm definitely not ruling that out. And I've sort of been a UFO enthusiast for many, many years, and so that sort of has a soft spot for me, I guess you could say. At the same time, I have never seen any good evidence that we actually live in an enclosed system. So I'm always leaving the possibility open that the plane, the physical plane, stretches out anywhere up to and including infinity. But space, on the other hand, is merely just a feature of the world. And if you think of the celestial bodies as all being basically on the same plane, perhaps they're limited to our world. Perhaps they keep going. I mean, we really don't know. Not too many people have, at least recently, really surveyed the far southern region. So we're basically going on assumptions that have been around, for hundreds of years. And it's just so convenient,
And if light doesn't travel, more than a few thousand miles, we don't know what's past the outer rim or above us. We can only see so far, and then if there's another system, another dome, and another layer, another spiritual layer, whatever it is, the light, the energy doesn't make it to us, so we just can't sense it.
Well, if you look at what people are saying, if you look at the narrative behind UFOs, they're either 100% real or they're 100% fake. But, I mean, I've seen things that are so convincing that people have been, witnessing and putting down images of UFOs for, hundreds of years throughout history. So, if we're going to just discount all that, then we have to, discount all of it. But if there's something to it, if you just sort of hypothesize if there's actually something to the UFO phenomenon that we're not, that our governments are not doing, because I think they're doing some of it, but if there's something extraterrestrial to it, it's actually theoretically possible, with the flat Earth model, if you consider it's possibly an infinite plane, and these beings don't have to travel, hundreds of light years through space and somehow find our little planet in the little corner of this galaxy that doesn't exist.
I mean, you can't even talk about the orders of magnitude, how much more likely and possible that is than the official ET story. I mean, I believed in ETs, because I wanted to believe in them, but I'm like, God, how would they really find us? Maybe they're out there, but they'll never come here. But they're already here. They're all here. That's where it all comes from,
This would be a good point to bring in Zen about his research from the Book of Enoch and the 6 gates that he goes that talks about the moon going through and what he saw and as he was taken up. You know what I mean? Would you be willing to go on that a little bit?
Yeah, but I want to comment on something first from the Emerald Tablets. Because in the Emerald Tablets, it talks about how a time during the Atlantean Age when they were opening these stargates and these portals, sort of like, what CERN may be involved in even now. And if they are able to open stargates and have this wormhole technology, and it also mentions these interdimensional interdimensional frequency type beings being called up from the below, invited into this space plane. And so that's another whole something that we have to consider as well, even if it's not technology such as like UFO technology or anti-gravity technology, chariots of fire, whatever you want to, that possibly they're able to breach if there is some kind of boundary to this system, something beyond that we don't know, and if there is something that keeps them here and from escaping or keeps something from being able to get in, if they're able to breach and to make that kind of jump using such technologies, because it is also my opinion that there's something more to CERN than on the surface and what we are to know about, and that the public is privy to as far as that kind of knowledge. And then there's other speculation, but of course, who really knows, of these jump room technologies. People talk about possibly using such jump room technologies to go to different time, space, dimension, but who really knows? I mean, this is all really speculation, but yeah, the book of Enoch does speak of 10 heavens, and Enoch was taken up by the angel Uriel and taken through, even because I did a show just this past Saturday speaking about how the North Pole is supposed to be like a gate, a doorway, a portal, and that the mountain there, the magnetic mountain, that this is supposedly a Mount Meru or Mount Moriah or Mount Olympus, that the gods and even Elohim, even in the scriptures, it speaks about the throne of God as being on the very top of the firmament. And even that, even in Isaiah chapter 40, it speaks about he that sitteth on the circle of the earth, and how the heavens were spread out as a curtain, fitted to the circle of the earth, and that together they form a shape of a tent or a tabernacle. In Isaiah 66, it speaks about that the earth is the footstool of the Most High. And in Enoch, when he was taken up through these heavens, he was brought before the face of the Most High, and it says that the cherubim and the 4 and 20 elders, and like even in Revelation 15 and Revelation 4, it gives a description of this sea of glass, and that the Most High sits there at the top of the firmament, and this is where Enoch was taken when he was given vision and also shown the description of the motions of the sun and the moon above this flat circular plane. And I had been reading the book of Enoch since I was 18 years old, but it wasn't until I opened myself to the possibility of understanding that the model of the world was most certainly not this heliocentric worldview that we have all been bought into and that the educational systems have perpetuated. But when I understood that the vision that Isaiah describes in chapter 40 and that Enoch is speaking about as backdrop, that the earth is like a clock's face, and that the sun and the moon move in clockwise circuit above and around the North Pole, the Arctic region, and that it describes its motion through the 6 gates of heaven, and that the 6 gates of heaven are spread between the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer. And he breaks down in detail how the year is broken down also by the 2 equinoxes and the solstices. And Enoch describes the motion of the sun and the moon through these 6 gates. He begins on the day of the vernal equinox, when the sun is positioned directly above the equator, and he divides the 4th, 5th, and 6th gate from the equator to the Tropic of Cancer, and the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd gate are from the Tropic of Capricorn to the equator. And in his description of the year in its linear progression, he describes spring beginning on the vernal equinox, and then it takes 30 days for the sun to traverse between moving above the equator through the 4th gate, through the 5th gate, and then reaching the 6th gate at the Tropic of Cancer. It takes the summer solstice for it to reach its summer height, and then to reverse course and start moving southward back down through these gates of heaven. And summer solstice begins the first day of summer, and then it takes the 90 days to move down through the 6th, 5th, and 4th gate, reaching the equator on the autumnal equinox, which begins fall, and then it takes 90 days for it to reach the Tropic of Capricorn. And when it reaches the Tropic of Capricorn, the winter solstice, it reverses course, and then it begins to move back up towards the equator. And so that's how Enoch breaks down the progression, the movement of the sun over the course of the year. And he also says that the year is equally divided into 364 days, not 365.14, a quarter, like we have the Gregorian solar calendars based upon. But he says it's exactly 364 days, which it's 90 days for each season, and then the 1 day for the equinoxes and the solstices, and that it exactly breaks down in this particular fashion. And so it's quite fascinating. And then when you apply the description of the movement of the sun and the moon between these six gates of heaven, it completely makes sense as it applies to, I don't know if you both have seen how Rob Skiba, he breaks down using the stellarium, he's able to show the movement, the circuits of the sun, both how it has a very short and tight circuit when it's above the Tropic of Cancer, and then a very elongated and wide circuit when it is above the Tropic of Capricorn. It's fascinating.
There's a lot of observations that have been made to support that. For example, in the southern hemisphere, supposedly, I've never been there, but supposedly the twilight phenomenon is a much more abrupt. And in the northern hemisphere, depending on the season, the twilight is, sort of lingers around. It stays around for a lot longer. So there's definitely not the bilateral symmetry that you would necessarily have on a globe. So,
John, isn't it the opposite? Doesn't it hang around in the southern and short in the northern?
Yeah,
I
might have
backwards.
I might have it backwards.
Yeah. It is when the Tropic of Cancer is the circle that is closest to the Arctic regions, and it does have the tight, and it moves slowest because the circuit always maintains itself to one 24-hour period. And that's also where the midnight sun phenomena occurs. And you're right, as far as the differentiation between the Arctic and the Antarctic region, there's, when the sun is moving slow above the Arctic, and you can actually see it move in its full circle from west to east and then north and back to the east, it stays above the horizon for days at a time. Right. But during that time, the tundra thaws because the sun is moving so slow. The tundra thaws, it turns into rivers, all these mosses and lichens and everything grows, trees bloom, flowers bloom. All of the animals have their gestation and cycles as far as becoming pregnant and propagating the different, all of that occurs during this time. There's actual, have been human populations living in the Arctic for thousands of years, and in also the seas, they completely melt during this time. But whereas in Antarctica, during the when it's above the Tropic of Capricorn, the sun has to move very fast because the revolution is at its widest. And it's my opinion that there could be no way that the midnight sun phenomena, which is visibly seen and witnessed by many in the Arctic regions, that this kind of thing could also be seen in I would be surprised because the sun is moving at a faster pace.
Right. Jonathan, you were right, by the way. You had it. It lingers in the north and it's faster in the south.
Right. And, one of the issues that I've had and I've sort of wrestled with is, okay, so if we assume that the sun is a physical object, and I think that your description of Enoch is really impressive and it's very interesting. I have, and I told you before, but I have read Enoch in the past, and I've just, sort of just been looking at it again a little bit here lately as a flat earther, so it's definitely very interesting. But one of the things that I've sort of theorized, and this doesn't necessarily go against what Enoch was describing, but if you think of like if the sun is going around in a single circuit and that circuit never changes, and it's constantly going at the same speed, but the angle at which the source of the light is sort of penetrating through the firmament or the electromagnetic fields that sort of layer up above us, and if it sort of angles in, towards the northern summer and angles out towards the southern summer, but without actually moving, just sort of changing its angle of angle of attack of like I don't know, think of it as like a laser beam instead of a sun, but where that point of the laser beam hits our atmosphere or hits the magnetosphere or whatever, that's where we see the visible sun. I mean, this is just a theory. I'm not saying this is what it is, but it makes a lot of sense to me, and you don't have the issue of the sun needing to speed up during the southern summer and slow down during the northern summer. I mean, to me, that's sort of a physical issue. I'm not saying it's not doing that, but does that make sense that there's other things that could be going on that we're not really aware of?
I thought of that, and I had another explanation of how it could speed up and slow down. I think it's Randy Powell or one of those guys shows that if you have a ring magnet and put it over a magnetic capacitor, there's natural spin motion in that northern pole of a ring magnet. So imagine that our center, our north, is a ring magnet. Our sun is a type of capacitor, and it has that spin to it. And that spin, it's like, just imagine you're that magnetic north and you're holding a rope that's 10 feet long and you're swinging it over your head, and that's the spin force. So if you put a ball on that rope a foot out from your hand and you put another one out at 10 feet, it's that same spin motion. They're both going 360 degrees each at the same time, but one of them's going a lot faster than the other, but it's the same motion. And perhaps
so it's sort of riding the same magnetic field wave, if you will.
Right.
If that wave is running parallel to the latitude lines.
Right.
I'm sorry, to the longitude lines. If that wave is running like north to south, then I totally see what you're saying. Yeah.
So maybe when it gets all the way out to a certain point, wherever the strength of that magnetic spin, it says, okay, that's it. I'm going to slow down, and now I'm going to swing back in, and it comes back in. It gets recharged up in the inner northern hemisphere plane, and it sends it right back out again. And that is a reasonable explanation to me as a possibility.
Sure. Yeah.
Let me share just one passage really quick, because again, as I was talking about with the Book of Enoch, the portion that I'm talking about is called the Book on the Courses of the Heavenly Luminaries. But there was one particular passage that, if you try to understand this in applying this whole model to the heliocentric worldview, even if you're looking down at the globe from on the top of the North Pole, it just does not make sense. And this particular passage is chapter 71, verse 8, where it says this. And this was the whole thing that made me understand as far as the movement of the sun. It says this: the sun sets in heaven, and returning by the north to proceed towards the east is conducted so as to enter by that gate and illuminate the face of heaven. So it's talking about the sun moving from east to west, and then it moves north again, and then back to the east. So how could that occur in a heliocentric model? It just couldn't. But when you understand that Enoch was looking down at the circle of the earth as if it was a clock's face, and then he's describing a circle around the North Pole. And so the sun moves from the south, from the east, southwest, and then north west to where it reaches to the west, and then it moves northeast and then southeast, and it makes this complete circle. Of course, it's doing arcs, but he's basically describing a circle or motion to the circuit of the sun. And so the only way you can make sense of this portion of the Book of Enoch is when you apply it to the flat earth as a model of world.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I think it's really interesting because, just the way that he's describing, obviously the clockwise motion from looking down on it, that certainly makes a lot more sense in a flat Earth model. And if I sort of tend to think of the world as almost like a capacitor plate or a giant electromagnet, and there's just energies that are generated by the world's natural magnetic flux lines. And if it's that sort of thing that's causing the celestial bodies, and the celestial bodies are just a symptom of that, or a feature of that, it really makes a lot of sense. And there's good evidence for it too. I mean, look at all the weather balloon, super high altitude weather balloon footage, and most of the time you'll see the sun just a couple degrees above the horizon. So it's pretty darn close. The Zetetic model has it at less than 4,000 miles up, and that certainly makes a lot of sense. I mean, there's a lot of observations that we can make from high altitude flights that show things like hot spot directly underneath the sun all the time, which the thing's just no way 93 million miles away. It's very close.
Also, with the way that when a sun's going down in the clouds and the rays fan out in all directions, they're not all parallel with one another. Also, with the way that we see the sunset, the pillar of light reflecting off of the waves of the ocean, and because we'll see it all the way to the point where the sun is as it's reaching the vanishing point, which shows to us that the from where our feet, where we're looking on the beach, all the way out across the ocean is a completely flat surface, and that the ocean waves are between us and the sun. And then there's another phenomena where sometimes you'll see clouds behind the sun, clouds in front of and behind the sun. And how would that be possible if the sun is 93 million miles away?
I think that sort of thing may be more of an optical illusion, and I have seen some of the images of that and clouds going in front of and behind the moon. And again, I think this is sort of owing to if you take maybe a laser pointer or even a flashlight, and if you shine say a flashlight through a pane glass window, and that flashlight's beam hits the floor, well, you'll see like a circle of light in the pane of glass, but you'll also see a circle of light on the ground. But neither one of them is the actual source of the light. And if you sort of apply that to, think of the tip top of our atmosphere, or like the lower magnetosphere, as a plane of, well, what astronomers would say is a plane of plasma tubes. That's what they've recently imaged. Plasma tubes up there in the lower magnetosphere, which is about 600 kilometers up. But if light is passing through, all of that stuff, then, it's sort of hard to judge what actually is going on with the sources of the light, if that analogy makes sense.
Yeah, true. Mm-hmm.
I'd like to throw a thing in. A lot of people use hey, we wouldn't see the light going all the way across the ocean to the point of the sun. And I agree that we're looking across a flat plane. But if we were on a ball and the water is curved with that ball, there's a point where we can't see past the horizon because it's curved over the horizon. So now the sun is dropping down behind us. You're going to see that light on a ball Earth with curved water, which is crazy, from that point where you can't see below the curve of the water. You're going to see that line of sunlight all the way to you, and it's going to look like it goes all the way to the sun, but there's a huge gap in there. So right. I don't think that's really you can argue it both ways. So I really don't like using that, but with all of the other evidence,
actually, if you really do experiment with light, that effect is only possible if the sun's very close, or at least where that light's coming from is very close. So again, it can be sort of misleading, but yeah, no. If you look at reflection of a sunset from the ocean or whatever, or a sunrise, whichever coast you're on, it definitely it doesn't look good for the globe, just that one thing alone, because if the sun's 93 million miles away and the Earth is a globe, you just there's no way you can get that effect. The angles are all off. If the light's all coming in at parallel lines, right?
Right.
It's just the way. So
the bigger proof for me is real quickly the seasons. With the tilt of the Earth, one of the hemispheres is farther from the sun during its summer, and we're told that the seasons are because of the angle when if you're on the side of the Earth that is tipped towards the sun, it's that angle of rays that gives us our summer. Well, if that was true, then I go out on December 21st here at noon. I stare up at the sun, which is about 50 degrees off the horizon, and I barely feel the heat on my face. I'm freezing. And in the summer, on June 21st, if I watch the sun rise or sunset, I could feel the sun blazing on my face until it disappears past the point of convergence. If the ball model was true and it was the angles, even in the middle of the summer at sunrise and sunset, it should be Arctic freezing because you're at the most severe angle cutting through the atmosphere. You're at 1 degree off the horizon, 2 degrees off the horizon, and that little 23-degree tilt would mean nothing. I mean, it would be absolutely freezing.
It's totally backwards. And that is politically correct if you think about it, because the polar regions should get the most direct sunlight on average, because, again, they're actually supposed to be tilted in towards the sun every summer. Each polar region gets its own summer, and during that time it's got, supposedly in the globe Earth model, it's got direct, like the most direct sunlight for half of the year. So, yeah, it's just totally, it doesn't make any sense. That the ice in the center and the ice on the outside, if that actually is what it is. I've never been to the North Pole and I've never been to the South Pole either, but if we go by, what we're told, then that makes a lot more sense in the flat Earth model. Yeah.
Well, consider that science also says that in January we're actually closer to the sun, and that when it's summer we're actually 3 or 4 million miles more extent from the sun. So how does that make any,
Well, they say it's because of the angle, but that angle is literally only 30 degrees or whatever. It's 23 degrees. But you have to think about that. The angle changes throughout the day. Sunrise and sunset should be freezing every day of the year.
Yeah, it's bogus. It doesn't, when we're told all this stuff, and I don't know about you guys, but I was taught all this stuff basically as a toddler. And, once you get into middle school and high school and stuff, sure, you have science class, but it's all just reinforcing, this heliocentric model. Right. And any arguments that we might have had against this model were basically squashed throughout our upbringing. And, now that we revisit this topic as rational, skeptical scientists, as adults, it doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't, and the alternate model just makes so much more sense in every single way. It's really kind of ironic.
Which is why I think people should, instead of just writing it off as complete being farcical, that people should really investigate it and look into it and give it a week, to just try to debunk it, because when you do, you find out that the rabbit hole just goes even that much further than we ever really believed originally.
Yeah. Hey, gentlemen, I would like to take this conversation in a little different direction, if you're willing. For my research, the reason why we have this heliocentric model is actually, it's based on religion, in particular religion of sun worship. It's the only thing that makes any sense to me. And if we look over the past several thousand years, this has been a part of humanity and has been part of the ruling elite's religion of worshiping the sun, and they really started pushing this heliocentric model during a time which most people have sort of spent much time researching on, and I understand, because it's seemingly tedious and a little too religious of an issue. I didn't even start studying this stuff myself until a couple of years ago, and that is the Counter-Reformation and the Reformation and the Jesuits. That all this stuff happened at the same time, and one of the things that they swore on with this military order, and that's what the Jesuits are, whether if it's just a little bit of research on it, you'll realize it. It's not me being prejudiced or bigoted. They actually say they are. They're a military order. And it was a Counter-Reformation to counter what happened. Whether one wants to believe in the Bible or not, regardless of that, what it did do is it opened up the floodgates and caused the greatest threat to the Roman Empire that's happened in 500 years. And so one of the things they did is through principles like learning, the ends justifies the means, etc., to actually push this false model that basically we're saying that is a false model. Now, I'm not saying the lower level folks, the mid-level folks are doing that, but the higher level folks, the people that are actually in charge and running the satanic system, are the ones. They know what they're doing and what this is all about. I just would like to hear your gentlemen's talk on that. By the way, when I talk about the Jesuits too, if one looks at the hierarchical structure of that, the Black Pope is the lead. It's the head of all these secret societies, including the Freemasons, and there's overwhelming evidence for that statement. I mean, I've done, probably 100 shows now on this topic. So everybody who wants to go back to my many shows and archives about it. So, but I don't really want to talk too much about that. But what I would like to talk about is what's your take on this and why? What is the motive that you see for this grand deception, this lie that focuses basically, if we're real honest about it, I mean, it really is, folks. It's about the sun. I mean, they think of this thing that's huge, that's in the center of everything, right? It's not us. It's the sun.
Yeah,
why
well,
is it?
I mean, anyone who starts to research, the occult and sort of the secret societies, it sort of all leads back to sun worship. Look at ancient Egypt. That, as far as we can tell, a big part of their sort of religion or whatever you want to call it was essentially sun worship. If you look at the ancient Greek civilization, it was essentially sun worship. And so you have this pattern throughout history of people worshiping the sun. So it's a pretty common thing. But then what I believe sort of happened was the Roman Catholic Church intermingled Christianity and this sun worshiping cult, which are two totally separate things. But it's sort of like the whole controlled opposition idea where, if you can't fight them, join them. Well, the Roman Catholic Church did an excellent job of essentially commandeering Christianity and basically ruling it to this very day. But yeah, so I definitely agree. I think that this ultimate agenda, they've got the sun, I think, 110 times bigger than the earth, and we'll all die without the sun. And really, if you think about it, heliocentrism is probably the most popular religion in the world, because it has all religions really within it. Now, people have sort of been telling me more recently that some Middle Eastern countries don't really push heliocentrism like we think they do. But at the end of the day, I've had Chinese people tell me that I was part of a cult because I thought the earth was flat. So heliocentrism is pretty widespread. And yeah, I definitely agree. I think that's exactly what they've done. I think it's a big part of the motive. I think the other part of the motive is to sort of it's a psychological prison for our minds. The globe is that is. But yeah, totally agreed.
Yeah. What do you think, son? What is your take on that?
I'm going to read just 2 paragraphs that I wrote in my book specifically about this particular topic. It says this: when I first woke up to the revelation that we live on a flat earth, I was initially blown away by the thought of how monumental a task it must have been for those in league with the heliocentric conspiracy capacity to pull it off and perpetuate it for so long. I just couldn't wrap my mind around how much necessary effort would have had to have been put forth in order to usurp the then belief in geocentric worldview. How many lies had to have been told, how many bribes made in order to overthrow and secure in one fell swoop the agreement of the then scientific establishment. I mean, this is a massive deception of, quote, global scale involving many nations of people, how many of the most well-respected, historically recognized, and celebrated scientific minds had to have been willing to accomplices in order for them to achieve the results that they did in leading astray the whole world. Now, here's where it gets to the Masonic part. How does one even begin to grasp the entanglement of so many in what was coup d'etat and crowning achievement for Lucifer as sun god in his efforts to be like the Most High? Because remember, it says in Isaiah, "For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation. In the sides of the north I will ascend above the heights of the clouds, and I will be like the Most High." The demotion of the earth as the preeminent focus of God's universe to that of just another one of the planetary subjects comprising the solar system was such a perfectly orchestrated hoax. It set the foundation for the latter acceptance of Darwinism and belief that man evolved from some ape-like ancestor. Science as religion has separated people from inherent belief in intelligent design and knowledge that we share a special covenant with the Creator, being made in His image. As crowning achievement of the creation, He established for us to believe in all things having just come about as random chance, without necessary involvement from some grand designer. Dumbfounded, I have been trying to understand why, more so than how they were able to do it. I'll just stop there. David, you want to comment on that?
I agree with all of that. You know, the big picture is they're just trying to keep us in a state of fear, disconnected from our power, disconnected from who we truly are. You know, if everybody knew the truth and of who we really are, they would have no power over us. The only way they can do that is keep us in fear, which disconnects us from our power, disconnects us from God. And, you know, if we believe that we're in a speck flying through the, you know, through the infinite cosmos with other specks out there, we don't think about God. I never thought about God my whole life. I mean, I tried to, but I just never really believed it. And I was brainwashed, you know, on all the garbage they teach us in school. And just by discovering the flat earth, I have changed everything. And you know what? You know why people don't run traffic lights when there's a camera on the light is because they know they're being watched, so everyone just behaves just a little bit better. So imagine if everyone discovered the flat earth and realized there was a God and just behaved just a little bit better. We'd live in a whole new world.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Point well taken. Well said.
You know, I got a question here to add on to this and go to maybe a deeper, more philosophical and psychological look at this whole issue, because coming to the realization that I have, and the rest of you gentlemen on the show tonight, that is the heliocentric model is just total bunk. There's nothing to support it, and that we have somehow been conditioned to believe in a whole bunch of fables and fairy tales. And certainly this has come across your minds numerous times, is how did we get to this point? How has humanity as a whole, why are we so easily deceived? Why do we buy into so many of the lies? Now, I understand we talked a little bit about, Dave talked a little bit about fear and all that, but and I think I agree with that. There's a big part to that. But another thing, there's just, you know, how did we get to this point where we deny our senses, we deny what's right in front of us, that we're willing to accept circumstances that really are detrimental or to our disadvantage as a group? I mean, it really is this issue. I'm sure all four, the rest of you, the other three of you, have thought about the implications of this topic and how it affects everything. And if it were to take root and it would spread like wildfire. That this would cause humanity to really question all the institutions that enslaved us over the many hundreds, if not thousands, of years. So, I don't know. Have you thought much about the psychological aspects of this, the cultural and social aspects of this? How do we get to this point? Why are we so easily deceived?
We're too trusting.
Yeah, I think it's a grander plan. You know, the people that are deceiving us really know the truth, and they're deceiving us. They're drugging us. They're poisoning us. You know, they're doing everything that they can to dumb us down. You know, and don't believe that fluoride is for your teeth. You know, we all know that fluoride dumbs us down, and I mean that's no conspiracy. You know, that's the truth. You know, that and all the other stuff they're spraying in the air, and all the pharmaceuticals, and all of the frequencies on television and Wi-Fi. I mean, you can just keep adding it on. You know, and basically, you know, everyone that I see out there, they're just going from paycheck to paycheck. They're working, you know, so they can drink on the weekend and go to a movie and be programmed even more. You know, and I look at their lives, and I'm just like, wow, they have no idea what's going on, and they're literally rats in a cage.
Yeah, I think psychologically some people, and probably most people, or a lot of people, are just simply unable to ask those questions and to actually face the implications of, you know, okay, well, if this is the case, if the Earth is a stationary plane, then that means, you know, most of what I know has been a lie or a misunderstanding just regurgitated back at me from somebody who wasn't lying. You know, all our teachers weren't lying, but it's just, for some people, it's just impossible for them to face the implications of what this means, and it actually, I think it also is sort of is an insult to people's intelligence, because they don't want to think that they were so gullible to miss something so obvious, but that's the case. And so psychologically, I think it's a good thing. To me, I've had, you know, it's been very liberating, and I've experienced some health benefits just psychologically knowing that, you know, we're not on a spinning globe flying around. But, you know, at the end of the day, it takes a certain type of person to look at this, and that's why, you know, it's so important to me. You know, I've been called crazy more than once, but it's just so simple and important that people just take another look at this thing. You know, just question some of these assumptions, and it actually, a lot of things start to make sense, and you start to see things differently, and you certainly see NASA differently.
There's an amazing quote. I forget who said it. It says, "It's easy to fool somebody, but it's almost impossible to convince them they've been fooled." You know, people don't like change that wrecks their paradigm. You know, people, you know, spend their lives learning stuff, and then when you find out that it's all lies, that's painful. You know, we're the government is literally our big parents, the parents of the United States family. That's our government. And when you find out that our government is really not out here for our good, that's too painful. And people don't like dealing with emotional pain like that, so they will refuse to look.
Right. I'll share with you 4 lines that I wrote about this. The grand deception as matrix is all-encompassing, consuming, and broad-reaching, yet so covert in imposition it is largely unnoticed. And the whole thing as far as the Matrix movies, I mean, really, that's what we're born into. We're spoon-fed by our parents, by the establishment, the educational systems, the religious institutions, the political systems, our TVs, our movies, our books, our culture. Everything reinforces certain mindset and certain beliefs. And things like this, you know, the heliocentric worldview, we never even second guess it. We never even question it. There are so many things that are similar. The whole thing as far as like fluoride, the vaccines, trusting government, trusting the doctors. We trust our school teachers. We trust our parents, our grandparents to teach us truth. We trust everything to teach us what is real. But the real thing about all of that is most of it is based upon lies, the matrix of deceit that is perpetuated in order to lead us into a certain mindset, into acting a certain way, behaving a certain way. Go get your education, become good taxpayers, work till you're 65 and too worn out, and then you can finally enjoy life, And we all buy into this. We buy into the materialism, the 9-to-5 dream, and unless you wake up to the paradigm and realize that we've been lied to and you can break that programming, most people will follow that exact tactic, that exact scheme without ever awakening. They'll be a zombie from the time that they're born to the time that they die, and they will never know different.
Well, and it's even people that are wide awake. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Red Silver J. He does a lot of stuff on YouTube. To wake him up. He's done a lot of really great videos, and I've followed his stuff for a long time. He's just very funny, and he touches on a lot of sort of conspiratorial issues. But he's right on the money so much. But just yesterday, I watched a video that he sort of covered. And it was just because of a conversation I had the other day. He was covering, Tia Tequila has sort of come out as a flat earther, which is kind of, big news because she has a pretty huge following. Right. But he was basically coming up with all these reasons why she was crazy and why she was a paid shill because she's coming out with this flat earth nonsense. And, that's what we're programmed to do. I mean, it's programming. And if you actually, if you never take the time to consider it, then, us people sitting on this call are always going to be crazy nutbags who think the earth is flat. Right. And and I'm sorry to put it that way, but that's what they think. But to me, it's very frustrating, but it's also sort of comical if you think about it because of how dead wrong they are. But we can't, we've all sort of been there. It's amazing. I mean, I agree with you, man. It's amazing that they pulled this off for so long. Whether it's hundreds of years, I mean, who knows? It's been going on quite a while. But it's almost like they have to start teaching us this and indoctrinating us into this model at such a young age because they know that if you believe something your whole life and nobody ever tells you different, then you're just going to keep believing it. I mean, it's self-reinforcing, sort of.
Do you know how they pulled it off for so long? What the people that I'll put quotation marks around that are hiding this from us, whether they're the Jesuits, Luciferians, or whatever you want to call them, the Vatican, whoever it is. They didn't do it on their own. This system was designed by God for us not to know that it's flat. It was designed so we couldn't see God, and that's really not that hard to hey, look at this system that was built for us. We could take advantage of this and keep everybody in the dark. It's not like they created everything. It was really built to be hidden from us. That's my thought.
This leads me to something that I wanted to ask you guys too, but here's a comment too that just on what we've been talking about. Few will latch on to anything that challenges or contradicts foundational belief, choosing to cling to false illusion, so long as either it is majority opinion or someone they admire perpetuates lie. Which brings me to, how so many people say that this is a psyop or that the CIA put this all out. I think about it like this. How and why would they do that? Because this totally does not benefit them in any kind of way, because it coming to the flat earth as revelation of world, it totally destroys the whole Darwinian heliocentric worldview, and also the next lie that they're going to be perpetuating, that as far as strong delusion that the ancient aliens are our creators, and that in my mind, why would they do that? Because it doesn't benefit them. And because so many people tell me, oh, it's just a psyop and that you're just believing all that and it's making Christians look foolish or stupid or whatever. But again, it doesn't benefit them. It actually benefits the Most High and it shows to us that indeed that this is a grand design system, and that it also verifies the veracity of the scriptures, and that they were divinely inspired, because not only the Bible but the book of Enoch have encoded within it, as far as the gospel, this revelation of the earth being flat, of a circular plane, and that and if that is true, and the scriptures are divinely inspired and prophetic in that manner, then the other things that it asserts, that God created the earth as foundation for the firmament, and that the firmament, the heavens, were spread out and fitted to it, and then the sun and the moon and the stars and the heavenly luminaries were placed into that firmament on day 4, that we were created in the image of the Creator, that we share special covenant with Him, and that the earth was specially created for us as place of habitation. All of those things, in my opinion, are mind-blowing, and especially, like, even I heard your interview, David, with Rob Skiba, and the very last 7 minutes of that interview where you were talking about how you were a militant atheist before coming to knowledge about these things. And for a lot of Christians, this may not be a salvation issue, but you think of all of the people that have been led astray and that have been separated from God because of belief and, the Darwinian heliocentric model and the perpetuation that everything just came about as random circumstance and everything just evolved to be as it is, and that there's all these millions and even billions of Earths out there that happen to be perfectly extant and in these Goldilocks zones, and that they will also replicate life in the same manner as occurred here. All of that gets thrown out the window when you come to this understanding. And so if it can bring individuals even like yourself to, question the relevancy of, is there a grand designer? And to me, that absolutely is a salvation issue for individuals like yourself, because it brings you to really consider whether there is a God and whether we truly do share covenant with Him. And that, in my mind, is the biggest thing that could happen for somebody that totally did not believe and wasn't even open to the possibility. Can you comment on that, David?
It was an amazing awakening for me. I mean, if you told me 6 months ago that I'd be sitting here on a show talking about how the earth is flat and how God created it, I would say you were absolutely crazy, and I'd probably never talk to you again. But it's so clear, and it's not that I was looking for something. It's not that I was needing something. Trying to make up something to make myself feel good. I felt good. I was suffering Stockholm syndrome like everyone else in this prison. But we don't realize it because everyone else is doing it. Hey, everyone else is doing it. It's amazing how people will react like everybody else. You've seen the thing where they have a room full of actors and one person's not an actor, and then like a guy in the hallway falls off a ladder and is screaming in pain, or a fire alarm goes off, and everyone ignores it, and so does the real person. It's like, oh, no one else is getting up, I guess I'm not getting up. And that's the world that we live in.
Right.
So I would like to share a little bit of my insights as well, some of my studying and research recently. If you look at the early history of Christianity in the early, the first century, second century Christians, and even the Jews, one of the biggest problems for the Roman Empire was when people took literal the teachings of what we call Jesus Christ or Yeshua the Messiah, or the only begotten the Father. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt love thy neighbor. Thou shalt love thy enemy. It became a real problem You see, because what happens is you become if you're a person who starts believing in God, you become peculiar to the world. Because really, in truth, the majority will, regardless of what they say, behavior says otherwise, that they really don't. That they really don't believe that there's actually a God that's a creator that has a design for us and is paying attention to our behavior and all that kind of thing. So you see what happened in those first 2 centuries, in which, if you look at the Jewish wars and the Christian persecution and what happened to the Roman Empire, and what actually caused its a significant cause of its downfall was this fact, this mentality, a change in people where they started to believe in the Creator more than the empire. And the empire knows this. And we've been living under the same empire for thousands of years. And I don't know if you gentlemen realize the significance of the threat of this issue to the Roman Empire. This is why they would never, cannot be a psychops, because they have memories. Those who pay attention to history, and if you're going to be in leadership positions, you're going to have to pay attention to history. You're going to know that this whole notion that if your people start believing in that there's a God and there's accountability, and that you're going to choose to have your accountability under your Creator instead of the state, it's going to cause severe problems. And if you must be honest let's just be honest, is the history of Christianity, when it married itself with the state, is horrendous. The truth of the matter is, if we look at all the colonization, the hundreds, if not billions of people that have been slaughtered over the past couple of thousand years, we have to be honest about this, is because the state corrupted the teachings of God, corrupted the people, and put the state before God. And that is the problem. And when you marry God, if you will, a state, which really is a Luciferian system, only evil happens. We have history to prove that. We have the deaths, not only the prophets and saints, but if we look at the Bible says specifically of all the slain upon the earth. Now, whether you believe it or not, that's one thing, but if you start studying your history, you're going to realize this is the case. And so when you look at the magnitude of this issue is so much greater and deeper than even the fact of what our world looks like, is what could possibly happen if it takes hold and catches fire. So this is why I recognize how severe or how drastic this issue is and what it could possibly cause. And I think God's behind all this. I really do. I don't think it's a state. I don't think it's a psyop operation. There might be government elements in it to confuse the issue, but hopefully people come to the bigger issue, which is that there is a creator, there's an intelligent designer, that there's something greater than us, and that maybe we ought to think more about that creator. You know what I mean? And the truth of the matter is, from my own observation, myself and others, there are times in a man's life, no matter how moral, no matter how great his integrity is, it will fail him. There are situations where even the greatest of men has to lean to something greater than themselves if they are to keep their integrity and do what's right. It's just the way life is. It's just the way human nature is. And so I think that's something that one should think about. And I don't know if you thought about it, and I would like to hear your comments about what I just said.
You know what's amazing about that is, I'm listening to what you're saying, and it's fascinating to me right now. But 6 months ago, if I'm an avid, podcast listener. I'm always researching everything, and I'll listen to all different shows. And as soon as they mention God, I'm switched off. I'm out in a second. I'm like, okay, they're going down that path, and I switch shows. And now that I've discovered the flat Earth, as soon as they mention God, I'm like, well, hold on, what are they saying? And I stop multitasking. So I'm always a little bit cautious about how much I discuss it, because I don't want to scare away people like myself, like I used to be. And so we all do our part, like this show right here, you know, this is a little heavier on the creator side, and I love it, and it's great, and people will find their way to this show. And the Morgile, Jonathan, he does different types of videos than I do, and that attracts, you know, people that are in that style. So I'm veering off subject a little bit, but the whole God thing now is what attracts me to it the most. But other people might not feel that way, so I try to balance it out.
Well, and, you know, to put things in perspective, what I always try to do is compare the two models. So, okay, looking at the heliocentric model, they say that everything came from, so the entire universe, this, you know, thinking of billions and billions or trillions of light years across, was all
from nothing,
all compressed into the area the size of the head of a pin or the size of a golf ball or whatever, which exploded, and we live on basically a chunk of an explosion. So
makes perfect sense.
From that, you know, we just so happen to have the right chemical composition, and somehow we got DNA out of mud. And you know,
right.
to me, there was always this issue of, you know, if you look at DNA as a code, which it absolutely is, or at least that's what it appears to be, is it's a code. You just simply can't have a code without a coder, and so really the whole model just doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, it's just if you ask someone a question about something, they'll just give you sort of a non-answer that might make sense on a sort of surface level, but if you really dig into the explanations, they really don't. It doesn't make sense. But if you look at the same question in the flat Earth model, yeah, I think the possibility for a grand designer becomes all the more real. It's not just something theoretical that you know, people have faith in based on the King James Bible, which is you know, I think it's still a good tool, but I think there are some misrepresentations in there. But at the same time, you know, if it takes us closer to Christ, Yeshua, her Mashiach, then to me that's really what's important. And you know, so much the scientific, secular scientific world tends to, you know, disprove the whole Christian Bible or the whole, you know, Hebrew and Christian Bible. Page 1, book 1 in Genesis, you know, it describes definitely not a spinning globe, and people will point to this as proof that the Bible was basically contrived. But when you actually look at this and you come to this realization that the Earth is actually a stationary plane, then just all of this stuff starts to make so much more sense. It answers so many more questions. It also raises a lot of questions. But, you know, it's such a beautiful thing. I mean, it's so simple. It explains so many things, and that's why I've sort of latched onto it right off the bat, because it answers a million questions that we have that, you know, sort of linger around with the heliocentric model. And you know, people are just unable to look at it because of psychological pretension, basically, pre-programming, and it's very, very powerful. But I think, you know, eventually, to answer your question, I think eventually one day it will sort of get to the critical mass that we need to where, you know, it sort of explodes, for lack of a better word. But until then, you know, to me, it's just so nice finally knowing something for sure, and I don't need explanations for every last detail. You know, heliocentrism doesn't answer every last detail; it only pretends to.
Right.
But with this awareness, to me, it's just so many questions are answered.
And I've had some of my listeners, one of my listeners told me specifically about her husband used to be an astrophysicist. He was an atheist, hardcore atheist, totally bought into, believed in the Darwinian heliocentric worldview that we evolved of apes, and that, you know, that there's many Earths out there and they are all randomly, DNA is just, as you said, coming out of the ground, out of the mud, and just we evolved from fish and came out of the oceans, and then somehow man came to be what it is, and that this kind of thing is replicating itself as process out there in the universal system many times over, even right now. But for her husband, when he did come to this realization, and he actually began to study and to read the scriptures, he embraced that there was a God. And she told me that they left, they moved out of the United States, they moved to Belize, got a little place down there to where they're now opening a little guest house, and he's even though he still has a love and a fascination for the stars, he doesn't want to be in the world of academia anymore. He doesn't want to, because he was teaching lies. He was perpetuating the whole story, the whole same thing, all of those lies upon lies, and he didn't want to propagate that system anymore. So he left and changed his whole worldview, his whole understanding, his whole perspective, and their whole lives have changed just because of this as revelation. And for me, the capacity that this as a knowledge and understanding has for totally turning a person's life upside down, especially for those that are, scientific academia background, PhD degrees, and have committed themselves to teaching as professors. So many individuals have been completely turned upside down in their lives. Instead of the world being upside down, the world was made flat, and because of this knowledge, everything for them has changed completely. And that is what is the most amazing thing to me about this knowledge, this information, that it can change somebody, as David was saying, from being militant atheist to unfriending you if you were, somebody that believed in God and in a grand designer. I mean, that to me is just what is so awesome, because the scriptures talk about in the last days, even the book of Enoch says that it would be written for a remote generation, a distant age. And it also says in Joel and other places that the Spirit would be poured out on all flesh, and that we are seeing those things come to light, that nothing would be hidden, everything would be revealed. And so it's my opinion that this is one of the key components for revealing truth to the masses, and that at some point there is going to be a critical mass, and more people are going to embrace this. It's still my opinion that the elect and those that will, fully come to understanding of this, that the masses will still, the majority will totally not buy into it and believe that it's not worthy of their time or worthy of their study, but that there will be many, and many will be reached, and it will impact and affect a lot of people's lives, and that because of that, many people will be introduced to God for the first time.
Yeah, well, it's so funny because one thing I've been sort of thinking about doing, and it takes a lot more guts than you think, but I've been sort of thinking about printing up some top 10 flat Earth fact flyers and just like randomly ambushing people like in the city here with flags and stuff, and putting it up on YouTube. But not so much to put it up on YouTube, but just to get random people involved in, or at least looking at this. And I think it's going to take something like that because, we can only reach so many people with social media. There are a lot of people plugged into social media, but they tend to, people that are really plugged into social media tend to stick with social media. And if we can get more people that are, just average people on the street looking at this, I think that's going to, lead to exponential growth faster than social media can. I mean, it's great in some ways, and in other ways, it's not so great connecting with everybody. So, just one thing I've been thinking about doing, and I definitely have the guts to do it. I think I'm more waiting on the weather to warm up a little bit.
Right on. I think that would be an interesting show. Like if you took a video or had somebody videotaping your discourse, your conversations with people, I think that would be fascinating, and that you would reach a wider audience, even on your the Morgile, the YouTube, your website. And
yeah, I think it would be
any of us, doing that.
Yeah, I definitely think it would be interesting to watch. Not so much fun to make. I might get punched in the face, but yeah, I think I'd do something like that because eventually it has to be done, and this is the sort of thing where I've had people come to me and say that they've gone to their to their pastor with this and literally been institutionalized for it. So it's something that when people come to this realization, they get very passionate about it, and so I would just use that as a cautionary tale, because it's not just one person either. I mean, this does happen from time to time where people want to sort of express this to people that they know and care about, and it ends up sort of backfiring on them because, again, I hate to abuse the analogy of the Matrix, but it really is a good analogy because a lot of people are still plugged into this very system, and it's just so hard to get on this level because so many assumptions are involved. I mean, it's really just mind-boggling. But sometimes it just takes, just someone to look at this and realize that there's a discussion to be had, and that's all it takes. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, I don't know if tell me how you feel if you want to keep going on. I would certainly like to. There's Zen brought up stars, and inevitably with this journey of the flat Earth and looking at the what is above us. What are stars? What is on the other side of the dome? I know could be most likely speculation, but then again, we're starting to think more, and we're getting imagery, video from independent sources demonstrating that the stars or what those luminaries in the sky are something different than what we have actually been told. I don't know. Would you like to address that?
I'll jump in.
Okay.
My current belief is that all of the luminaries we see in the sky, and that includes the stars, the wandering stars that we call planets, and the other things that we call the International Space Station and satellites. Some are aircraft and other stuff, that we don't know about, but these are things that have orbitable, is that a word? Paths. Just like the planets, the wandering stars have orbitable paths, and there are energetic, maybe sentient luminaries that are literally the projector of our holographic world that we live in. I used to laugh at astrology, but it's so intense if you really look at what they're talking about. And, I would laugh at it, but astrology is the real science, and astronomy is the made-up science. And everything is backwards. That for real, it's amazing. They teach us in school. They teach us mathematics, but they teach us the garbage mathematics, the basic stuff. They don't teach us sacred geometry and vortex mathematics. I know I've said this on other shows. I don't know if you guys have heard it. But those are the true, languages of our world that we live in, and that would give you great knowledge. So I just think that all of those luminaries that we see in the sky do affect us. When we're born and where we are, and the relationships to each other have a direct effect on our life. I used to say, how could where this rock is in space affect me in any way, shape, or form? It made no sense. But now that I know that it's not a rock, there's something very sacred and powerful up there above us. And to prove that these luminaries in the sky affect you, just think about people's moods when there's a full moon, or when there's a bright sunny day with a blue sky versus an overcast chemtrail-filled day. That changes your mood. It changes your energy level. It changes who you are. Just by looking at the sun, you gain vitamin D in your eyes, and if you sun gaze, and I highly recommend that people ground themselves and sun gaze at sunrise and sunset. My vision gets better when I sun gaze. I don't wear glasses, but things get a little blurry for me sometimes. If I sun gaze for a few days, my eyesight goes back to perfect. And there's energies that we just don't understand. People get sick in the winter because the sun has gone away and we're not getting our vitamin D, so our body starts regenerating cells in our lungs and stuff, and trying to protect itself because it's not getting what it needs from these luminaries in the sky that affect our life on every level.
Yeah, One theory that I've been looking into a little bit in terms of the stars it has to do with cymatics, or more specifically, like sonic luminescence. Which is a thing, and it sort of goes really nicely with the idea that that God actually spoke everything into existence, which is sort of a theory that I've been really sort of more and more leaning towards. But if you look at the stars in the sonic luminescence sense, that's one thing. But on the other hand, I remember a few years ago my research sort of stumbling upon this idea, or this anomaly, that a lot of these major earthquakes all over the world were sort of coinciding with different celestial events and different planetary alignments. So I tend to agree that there seems to be some effects here in reality on the physical plane, here on the ground. There seems to be some sort of relationship between us and the solar plane, or the cosmic plane, or whatever you want to call it. So, but that's very interesting.
I'm actually glad that you brought that up. Go ahead, David, and then I'll.
The YouTuber Flatwater put out a series. He was reading a book. I forget the name of it, and he mentioned in it, and I had heard it somewhere else, that in ancient times and maybe even in current times, that under certain conditions, when you look at the constellations, that they could actually see some sort of connection to all of the stars, like fibers or energetic pathways connecting the constellations, and then that's how you can tell that this constellation of stars creates this pattern. Have you heard of that or seen any evidence of it?
No, but that's fascinating.
I'm not sure I understood the question, or I'm not sure I understood what you were describing. I'm sorry.
You want to say it again, Dave? Well, I think he was saying like the different stars, the constellations, and how they form the Lion, the Big Dipper, that there's loose connections between them, like filaments of starlight or something, maybe, that give them the appearance as far as uniting these constellations in that way. Which I haven't heard, and I'm not sure of the flat water video that David is talking about. But
I haven't seen that either. And one thing that's my understanding, and this could be way off, who knows, but it's my understanding that in order to navigate upon the seas, you sort of have to have constellations so that you know what stars you're looking at. Otherwise, it just looks like a mess of stars.
Right.
But you can, if you assign certain patterns, if you can position those patterns, then you'll be able to navigate with the stars. And it seems like that's where the astrological configurations developed in ancient times, and we still have them today. Which is pretty good proof against the heliocentric model in and of itself. But that's my understanding. But there could be more to it, of course. But I'm not sure.
Well, there's if you really study the scriptures too, there's a thing called the Mazzaroth, which is a reference to the constellations. And the constellations, the story is that they actually, and these do go back to very ancient times, but they actually tell of the virgin birth and the coming of Messiah. Each one of the 12 constellations, that the full story of all of them together talks about the Yeshua being born of a virgin, how he would come as Messiah, he would crush the head of the serpent. There would be the war between the enmity, between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent, and that because the Genesis 3:15, the enmity between these two seed lines, that the seed of the woman would crush the head of the seed of the serpent, and the seed of the serpent would nip at the heel of Yeshua. All of that is written into the stars, and so it actually tells the story of the New Testament gospel, which is amazing in itself. But one thing I wanted to comment on in what you were talking about with the sound waves and the frequencies, and there was a video which shows when you enter sound frequencies into a bubble that is in a water medium, that the bubble will collapse and collapse so violently that it will create light. And it has a sacred geometric pattern, which, for those that know what I'm talking about, just recently there have been a number of videos put out where individuals have focused in with high-powered telescopes on different planets or different stars, and they show these kind of sacred geometric wave patterns of these. It's like a light frequency, similar to what happens when you enter, this wave sound frequency into this air bubble, and it generates this light, and that these stars, the heavenly luminaries, even the wandering stars, that they depict the same pattern as what one can see and witness when these sound waves are also entered into that same kind of medium. And so which also led me to the thing as far as Yeshua being the Word, and that there's a book called the Sefer Yetzirah, which is a very ancient text, and it was supposedly one of the books given to Adam when he was banished from paradise. And it talks about how Yeshua, as the Word, sang the universe into being, sang the creation into being. And so if because it also talks about in Genesis that there are waters above the firmament and waters below, and that possibly the stars, as these heavenly luminaries, are in this watery, the waters above. They're housed, and they are these sound waves, these sacred geometric patterns playing out in these waters above, and that's why we see them reflected in the patterns that we do, which makes sense to the word that you said, the schematics or whatever, as far as this particular scientific, which shows the propagation of light in this watery medium. It's fascinating. I'll look up the video and post it in the Skype. So,
well, it's funny because if you look at the whole molecular theory or the theory of atoms, it's almost like they put little solar systems inside of everything. But if you look at things differently, first of all, nobody's ever imaged an atom, so it's all very theoretical, where you have electrons spinning around. It could be something similar with this valence electron still working in theory, and that sort of thing still working in theory, but being totally different than a little, basically a little solar system being an atom. And instead of looking at it like that, I'm looking at things in terms of different frequencies, which is something that Nikola Tesla was very much a proponent for. And it just things make a lot of sense if you think about them in terms of different frequencies. And I don't think it should be any different in the astral plane or in the where the celestial bodies reside. I think it's probably something, or it's possibly something similar going on there, where you've got basically ethereal matter forming around the different wave patterns that exist up there. I mean, there could be lots of different explanations, but yeah, the stars are a big mystery. One thing's for sure, there's no way they could be, trillions of miles or thousands of light years away. That's just, there's no way light could travel that far. And, another thing I've been thinking about as well, sunlight has this characteristic that moonlight doesn't. The sunlight and moonlight are two very totally different things.
Right.
We can maybe get into that a little bit, but one of the main things that I've been sort of thinking about is sunlight causes the sky to be blue and light up like a sapphire, so you can't see the stars. But when the sun's gone and it's not around you anymore, we can see all the stars, basically clear as a bell, as long as it's a clear day. So with all that starlight, why doesn't our atmosphere turn blue? And when you think about it, it just really it goes along with the flat Earth model much better than it does the globe Earth model, because our atmosphere responds to light differently, sunlight differently than it does moonlight. I still think there's an argument to be had whether the moon is self-luminescing or whether it's reflecting light, but it goes through phases, which is sort of confusing. And so do the wandering stars seem to go through similar phases as the moon. So there seems to be two different types of things up there. Like the moon is almost more of a physical thing, where the stars and the sun may be, not so physical. Who knows? It's still very much up in the air.
Well, as far as the moon reflecting the sun's light, I don't see how that could be, because the properties of the moonlight is completely different from that of sunlight. Whereas sunlight, you can actually magnify it and create fire, and it will burst into a flame. When you magnify moonlight and then focus it on something, it actually reduces the temperature. And then it's also been proven experimentally and scientifically that the properties of moonlight can be detrimental if people don't get enough, vitamin D into as far as sun to balance that out. And if you only get moonlight, it can actually drive one. It causes detrimental effects on like animals that are only exposed to the moonlight, and so the properties would have to be similar, in my opinion, if the moon were reflecting sunlight. And how there's this differentiation just doesn't make sense to me if it is indeed reflecting sunlight.
So talking about the distance, light traveling a distance, the sun is 97 million miles. We'll call it 100 million miles away from us. And it's this giant, giant thing, and it looks really small in the sky because it's 100 million miles away. Well, the nearest star is 4 light years away. Light years. The sun is light minutes, a couple light minutes away, right? Imagine if the sun was just twice the distance that it is. We wouldn't be able to see it. It would be gone. I mean, so is there a point in space where, all right, it's already this small, it's never going to get any smaller no matter how far you put it? I mean, if you really think about that, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. If the sun was 3 times the distance, let's just say that, you wouldn't see it.
Right.
Yeah,
right?
I agree. And this is all those distances are of course theoretical, but
right.
yeah, of course. And another thing too, look at Jupiter, for example. Jupiter's actually supposedly further away than the sun. And you can see Jupiter and actually detect its moons with the naked eye, apparently, which is like, how is that possible? The sun is supposedly about 93 million miles away from us, and Jupiter is supposedly 3 times that distance. And you have to go basically on a plane through the asteroid belt, which is all these points are on the same plane, the sun, the Earth, and Jupiter. In the heliocentric model, it's called the solar plane. It's the orbital plane. And it's just impossible that you could see these, little tiny 365 million mile away planet through the asteroid belt. It's just so ridiculous. And yeah, so I agree. If the sun were, twice as far, or say from Jupiter, the sun is supposed to be, I think it's 4 solar units or whatever, so 400 million miles or something like that. Yeah, the sun would be just another tiny little star, it would seem.
Right. Yeah, the Book of Enoch says that the moon and the sun are of the same size and proportion, which if you watch the solar eclipse, it seems to have that appearance as far as the way that all of that goes down. The moon, as far as the body of the moon, totally blocking out all aspects of the sun except for that the coronal effects, the sunlight that breaches beyond the body of the moon that's blocking it out and eclipsing it. It seems to be of the same size. I know science says that's because the moon is the sun is 400 times distance and 40 times larger than, or whatever, 40 times 400 times larger,
yeah.
And 40 times more distant. So, but yeah, that's what the Book of Enoch says.
Well, in terms of because I'm still like up in the air on this in terms of whether the moon is self-luminescing or whether it's reflected light. And one of the major arguments against that idea is the one that you've made, that the moon couldn't reflect sunlight and change the properties, but I'm not so sure. One thing, if you look into solar eclipses, either total or annular solar eclipses, it's conditional that you have a new moon or like a no moon phase. So that sort of goes, that sort of fits with the idea of it being reflected light. But if you think about one of the ways I think about it is if the moon and the sun are sort of outside of our little electromagnetic bubble here, which actually renders light visible, you can't see stars or you can't see light without something to reflect the light off of, much like you can't see something without light reflecting off of it. So it sort of goes hand in hand, but the way I think of it is if the moon's reflecting, sort of absorbing some of the sunlight and sort of reflecting off different wavelengths of the same original source of light, then passing through these different layers of atmosphere and electromagnetic fields that we have, rendering it visible light. I could see something like that happening. I mean, I don't necessarily think that we should jump to the conclusion that because moonlight has different properties, then it couldn't possibly be reflected light.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I'm still
totally.
up to
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And also the Book of Enoch does say that in a portion of it that the moon does reflect that of the sun's light. But again, in my book where I talked about this particular passage, I brought up that same thing. And then I also speculated at the end whether it had some kind of photosynthetic property, like, plants are able to convert the sunlight and to change it into glucose or fuel for its growth. Does the moon also convert it into its own light and perpetuate it in that way? Who knows?
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Dave, what were you just sharing? Looks pretty awesome, this video. What did you just share?
We spoke about it earlier. The weightlessness in the space station. They talk about, some of it's done in a vomit comet, some of it's done with wires, especially when they do those forward flips. Like, hey, look, we're in 0G. We can do forward flips, but we can't do around each other or turn around. This shows that you can, maybe you guys can link it below this video. It shows that they levitated a frog who was with acoustic levitation, and the frog was fine. So there are a couple scenes that I haven't been able to figure out where the astronauts are floating for long periods of time. But again, they did it in the movie Gravity, and you can't figure that out either.
Right.
But this is a distinct possibility for some of those extended scenes where they have an underground facility, they have, a $1 billion acoustic levitation system, and hey, we're fooled.
Yeah, and also what's going up in the skies, the heavens. I mean, it's a possibility as far as those luminaries and how they are there. You watch the videos of them and the lights patterns dancing and moving and going about.
I don't think that's man-made. I mean, it may be acoustic levitation or some form of quantum locking where, magnetic and electric forces are holding it in space. You guys have seen quantum locking, yes?
No.
No.
I'll send you a video.
Okay, cool.
Well, it's basically, I think what that was, quantum locking was where they had the supercharged, it was like a supercharged magnet or something.
A superconductor, and that's why I like to call our sun a capacitor, because it's a superconducting capacitor.
Yeah, well, I know, I'm pretty damn sure that the Earth itself is a giant, basically Tesla coil or a giant
absolutely.
And
right.
So, the sun, it seems as if it's almost as if the sun is something that's generated outside of this system, but it's still related. I don't know. It's still very sort of murky, but yeah.
What about the fact that the majority of the world that we live on is made up of salt water, and how that's connection with the suns are? You've got the sodium chloride and how it's necessary. I guess it's necessary with chemical for a battery, right?
Huh. Yeah, it's got high in electrolytes, right?
Well, I guess my suggestion is, and it's just a suggestion, obviously, but how say the world that we lived on was all fresh water, would we end up maybe losing the sun and the moon? Could that be part of like some integral, like battery type system that we're actually living on, you know? And that it's necessary that we have all this salt water in order to have the moon and sun. I don't know. It's just a suggestion. But it seems to me, if you were a designer, and I can understand like Mark Sarge's argument that, you know, as a way of keeping us in our place. But the same token, I mean, if I was the one designing it, would I make the majority of the water salty? I don't know. It's something to think about. There has to be something relevant to it also.
The sun being an electric capacitor affects salt water. You know, magnetism pulls on salt water, so maybe it's by design that there's so much salt in everything. You know, that explains what we call the Coriolis effect. You know, the sun is plowing a path through the tropics, the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer, and it's pushing all of the moisture in the air and the oceans through a magnetic force. It's one explanation that can be tested and proven versus the magical gravity moon, you know, pulling the water but not pulling us.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, ridiculous. But in terms of the salt water, you know, it does make a lot of sense what you're saying, because you can generate electricity and propagate waves better in salt water and water that's high in electrolytes. So yeah, that does make some sense. You know, from a game designer standpoint, I'd probably put salt in the water.
Right.
But yeah, that's. I'm not sure. I would necessarily say that it's generating, you know, the conditions to sort of render the sun and the moon. I'm not sure, but it seems to me like there's a very delicate balance going on here, and it's all just things resonating on different frequencies. You know, that's the way I look at it. And you know, the ground beneath us appears to be very solid, and you know, beneath that you've got lava, which really doesn't work very well if it's a ball. Have you ever seen a ball wrapped around lava? But if we're sort of floating on the top here, you know, that makes a little bit more sense, I think. You know, we definitely have lava beneath us. It pops out of volcanoes still. So, you know, there's a lot of activity going on that's simply generated underneath our feet that we're not aware of. And I think that, you know, spinning lava underneath us is probably not out of the question. And, you know, we've got spinning atmosphere above us and spinning stars above that. Why wouldn't we have spinning lava beneath us? You know, sort of, I don't know if that would be causal of everything else or just reacting to the same sort of ethereal flow as everything else does.
Interesting stuff. It really makes, you know, the more you contemplate, once you grasp the fact that the cosmology and what our world actually is and looks like is completely different from what we've been told all our lives, it just makes you just question everything, doesn't it? And really, I mean, I think about why we have blue skies. And I know that they'll say it has something to do with, or I guess, refraction of light, and but is it really? I mean, why do we? I don't know. It makes
Maybe it has to do with the waters above the firmament. You know,
right?
The waters on the earth are blue, and the waters in the sky are blue.
Yeah, and you think about it. You think of, you know, so they've given us, you know, the excuse that they have given us is because of the Van Allen belt, and they can't get through this radiation. But maybe it has nothing to. Maybe they've lied about everything else, gentlemen. What
yeah, they have.
You know, it really behooves us all, humanity, to question everything. Once again, and which is, it just goes to show, right now, how wicked the system that is actually ruling this world is. At 2016, we have to question everything again.
Right.
You know, my big thing was 9/11 Sandy Hook in Boston, you know, and then came, you know, with all the other hoaxes around that. And I was like, wow, they lie to us about everything. You know, this is as big as it gets. And then comes the flat Earth, and I'm like, oh my God. So
what's the next revelation? That's what I'm thinking. What's the next one? You know,
the next one is that we're not even here, and that we're literally in the Matrix. You know, when I refer to the documentary with Keanu Reeves called The Matrix, it's a documentary. I mean, it's literally closer to the reality of our world than the one that we're taught.
Right.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
gentlemen, I think it has been an excellent, rewarding, enriching time this evening. I really appreciate you spending your time with me. I think it'd probably be good to start clothing comments and inspirational thoughts or whatever you may have. And then also, if you wouldn't mind going over the work that you're doing, where people can find your work, and what's coming up in the future here for you, Joe. So, if you don't mind, and I guess I don't know who to start with. So, but okay, well, I'll start with Zen. How's this?
All right. Well, I just want to say that, you know, I think these are the kind of dialogue, conversations, and evenings that individuals like myself and those that are part of this roundtable, that this is greatly beneficial for the listening audience and for people that have even begun to go down this particular rabbit hole, and even for those that have. These are questions that all of us have, and sharing dialogue and fellowship with you guys this evening has really benefited me and broadened my horizons on a lot of the things that I probably otherwise might not have ever have contemplated. And the interaction, the sharing as far as testimony and the videos and all of that, I think it's wonderful discourse, and it's something that I think will be greatly beneficial to those that listen to the archives at later time. As far as my work, I run the website fallenangels.tv. I do a program on Truth Frequency Radio called Secrets Revealed every Saturday, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern, and on Revolution Radio, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern. You can contact me, Zen Garcia, on Facebook. My author website is zengarcia.com. I'm the author of 9 books, my latest being The Flat Earth as Key to Decrypt the Book of Enoch.
Awesome, man. I guess I'll go next. This is John. You can find me basically on YouTube. My YouTube channel is The Morgile, TheMorgile. I think the T and the M are capital. There was somebody impostering me and making rude comments all over the place, so I'm the one that has like over 100 videos, not the guy that doesn't have any videos, so just so you know. And I'm just put out a new video just yesterday. It's having to do with maps and maybe some different ways to look at the matrix of the maps. Not totally changing the definition of the word matrix. We're not using the analogy. We're actually looking at the different ways to map out relative distances on a plane. I'm certainly no cartographer. And I'm always coming out with new stuff, so check me out on YouTube. And I think I'll be talking to you again this week, Zen?
Yeah, absolutely. Saturday. Brother Jonathan is going to be joining me on Secrets Revealed, so definitely catch it if you can. Also, my YouTube channel is Endeavor Freedom.
Awesome, man.
All right. And, I originally started out basically taking other people's work and compiling them. Like I'll go through hundreds of videos and go, okay, these 6 are the ones that you need to do. So I started the Facebook pages exposing the big 3, Baller, Skeptic, and Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole, breaking up the categories a little bit. So subscribe to those. Follow my YouTube channel, DITRH, stands for Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole. I didn't even know how to make videos when I discovered when I got into this. And now I make a lot of short videos. probably because I have a short attention span myself, and you know, somebody that doesn't believe in any of these things, especially the flat Earth, is not going to sit down and watch an hour video or 2 hour video or 3 hour video. So I put out a 60-second, a 2-minute, a 3-minute video that makes them scratch their head. Then they'll watch a 5 or a 10-minute video, and then they'll go in. You know, so I bring them in, like bringing a fish up with some breadcrumbs or something. So check that out. It's excuse me. It's all linked on deepinsidetherabbithole.com, or just Google David Weiss Flat Earth, and I have a very high Google rating, it appears.
Well, gentlemen, once again, thank you very much for sharing your evening. You didn't have to. I feel very privileged and honored that you were willing to do so. Then we will be together tomorrow night, right? On this
right, and I would suggest that, you know, we get together and do forums like this on Secrets Revealed, you know, and anytime you guys want to do it, I think the Roundtable is greatly beneficial for a lot of people. So I would be down for, you know, more collaborations in this regard, and certainly would invite you and David and you know, Jonathan, of course, coming on this Saturday, but to join me sometime on my show, and I'd love to have you as guests.
Yeah, I think so. I think it'd be great. And I know we've been talking about making this more of a regular thing, and I guess we haven't quite decided what the platform will be, but I think having more of these kind of roundtables definitely are advantageous, and probably, you know, let's face it, one of the things is Jonathan and Jaron and Bob. I forget about it. And the Globe Busters. That whole idea, I think, is a very. I think you do this. If you can find just a couple like-minded folks who are trying to be as rational and as reasonable and as intelligent. And
you know, I totally forgot to plug Globe Busters. I don't know where my brain's at. It's 12:30 midnight here, so no, I'm good though.
Right.
We just changed times. We used to do I guess Sundays and Mondays. Now we do let's see here, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. and Sundays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So check out the Globe Busters every week, twice a week. So, and we got a bunch of archives, so check that out.
Yeah, and you know, so I would like to have. That's cool. I would like to have all three of you on my show. Certainly, Zen will be tomorrow night, and I'm looking forward to that. We've had an interesting journey so far. Reading a lot of these extra biblical texts, like the Adam and Eve and the Book of Adam and Eve and all those other things, and just the insights that you know, you just don't hear from your traditional, you know, churchy type of churchianity, if you will. So that's what I think. I'm looking really forward to tomorrow night. I would like to have all three either together or individually on my show down the road. Definitely, Dave, if you're game, in the next couple of weeks, I'd like you to come back on my show and we talk a little more about your individual research. Also, I would really like to talk to you or hear from you your spiritual journey, because I find that fascinating. You know, whether or not you are in the same camp or whatever, or you know what I mean, you're not, you know, it doesn't matter. What matters is just to learn about your journey and understand where you come from. So sure. I think, you know what I mean, I think that you're a very interesting man. So
I'd like to make one additional plug. You know, a lot of people are listening to this research and they really like it. And a lot of sites, a lot of people, we spend a lot of time on this, and it's we don't do it for the money, but a lot of us need you know, some income from it. And people have donation buttons, and a lot of people are reluctant to even donate a couple of dollars because it's just not something they're comfortable with, which is fine. I just want to point out, like, Jaronism, he spends so much time on this stuff and does such great videos. There's a great way to support him. If you go to Jaronism.com and click the support button, he has a link that says Amazon. Anyone that buys anything on Amazon, if you just go to his site, click Amazon, and then do your shopping. Everything's exactly the same as if you typed in Amazon.com, and then he gets like 2% commission off of whatever you do, and that'll support him so he can keep doing this amazing work and waking the world up. So it doesn't cost you anything. Everybody uses Amazon. If you could just remember, go to Amazon through his site, you're donating and supporting the Flat Earth research and the freedom of humanity.
Yep.
Here, here. And don't forget also supporting Jonathan and his YouTube channel and his work, the Morgile. And don't forget also Zen Garcia and supporting him, and also Truth Frequency Radio, because quite frankly, and well, let's be honest, none of us are making any money doing this. So we're not making a killing, that's for sure. I don't think. Well, actually, let's be honest, we're not even making any money.
Of course, this has cost me. I can't tell you how much money I've put into this. I'm just saying, if you want to donate, sure, everyone loves donation. I think Jonathan, you've got a donation button. But if you're not up for donating, but you're gonna be buying yourself stuff, do it. So it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt anybody. It only helps. And then the love to be spread around.
The way I like to put it is I do spend a lot of time making videos. I've made a bunch of videos just, as a proponent of this whole Flat Earth movement. And I do lots and lots and lots of shows. And so it does cost up a lot of time. And, yeah, no, I've made no money doing it except for, some ad revenues on YouTube, which have been slim to none until recently. I had a couple of good months because I changed some things. I put non-skippable ads and stuff. But honestly, if it hadn't been for the community actually supporting my channel, I never would have been able to, continue doing what I was doing and, keep a place to live and keep the internet and the lights on. So, it really does help out, and I don't expect everyone to contribute to my efforts. But at the same time, everything I put out is free. If you think it's worth something, then great. And if you think it was worth nothing, then that's fine too. I've never, forced or impressed anyone to support my efforts. But if you'd like to, the option's there. And I really only set that sort of thing up in response to people that asked for it. So I never would have in a million years thought to initiate something like that on my own. So just so y'all know.
Yeah, perfect.
John, it sounds like you're losing your voice. You've been talking a lot recently.
Yeah, I've actually had a touch of laryngitis that I got over, and it's been the cold weather and then the warm weather and then the cold weather. Yeah, right. I'm probably a bit froggy. Sorry, guys.
Well, gentlemen, don't hang up on me, but we're going to end the show. And folks, once again, this has been life is a fascinating journey if you want it to be, and if you allow it to be, and it's interesting. Life is just a joy when you let it be interesting, regardless of where you're at in life. So I say God bless you and take care, and talk to you soon. Oh, by the way, don't forget tomorrow night, Zen will be with me, and then Thursday night, Jaron from Jaronism will be with me. So, all right, good. Let's take care. Standings are, I hope that they are resolved soon, because really, I understand some of the frustration that Tiger Dance is feeling, as we all are, in trying to suss out the pieces and try to make sense of our world. Certainly, the big issue, as far as I see it, is 2016, and we still have doubts and misunderstandings. Why are they hiding the world that they're hiding from us? I think it should be a good conversation tonight to talk about that as well. Anyways, with that, what I was thinking about doing is starting out and talking a little bit about Jonathan's recent 3-part video series about one of the major problems that we have. Whether you're a flat earther or a globalist, it doesn't really matter. We don't have accurate, reliable information as far as how our world looks, and it is very frustrating. And for many of us, our hands are tied because we don't have the access, the ability to retrieve this. But it seems to me that certainly in 2016, the powers that be, whether it's the Jesuits or Freemasons or whatever it is, the ruling elite, surely must know this, and they're hiding this from us. So I would like to start out with this, John, if you're game. Let's talk a little bit about your recent video series that you just did.
Yeah, sure. And first off, it's only just like 30 plus minutes. It's like slightly more than 30 minutes, but I'm bound to 15-minute chunks. And so the third section was literally like 2 or 3 minutes long. And so I just put a song in the end there too. So it's just a 30-minute video because it was really just sort of synchronicity that I was working on, just looking at some different ways to construct the matrix that we use to map out, relative distances, because you can change certain variables and come out with totally different maps, and they would still technically work in a navigational sense. But so I was working on this at the same time that Tiger Dan, comes out with a video calling all flat earthers who sort of subscribe to, or I guess you could say push, an azimuthal equidistant map matrix where the Antarctic is sort of, around the outside. He says anyone who says that is a liar because of a flight from Sydney to Chile in 13 or 14 hours or something like that. So to me, one of the things I've said for a long time is that we don't have any accurate maps in a sense that they accurately represent the face of the Earth, like a snapshot of the face of the Earth. Even the Mercator projection, which is sort of a conventional map that we still use today, just the simple nature of it. It's the nature of the way the map is made skews relative sizes of continents and relative distances between continents the further you get from the equator. So it's by definition it's a cylindrical conformal map, and so by definition it's more and more skewed up to infinity when you get to the polar regions. So it technically could not possibly be an accurate representation of what the Earth actually looks like. I think one of the things that we'll touch on, however, is that Mercator may or may not have been a flat earther. I think it's very possible that he was. And in fact, he did sort of come out with, I guess you could say, a flat Earth map with the North Pole in the center. So, this is a big issue for the flat Earth community, and it's something that we've been sort of kicking around and trying to figure out for a good long while. You have to have a map and you have to have a model, and the AE map sort of does work for, demonstrating how this stuff sort of works or how we think it works. We know for sure that the Earth isn't a spinning globe. That's for sure. But I just think it's a little bit naive to try to ascribe what the sun is doing, to take what the sun is doing and to sort of use that to prove what the Earth looks like. We really don't know what the sun is doing. And just because, say, it's 12 o'clock noon here while it's midnight there, then we sort of, we have to put these 2 points on the opposite ends of the North Pole. And I don't know, it just seems like maybe there's something that we're missing in that regard. So, it's to me, it's still sort of a big mystery what everything actually looks like. It doesn't look like the Mercator projection, I don't think. Maybe it does, but I just really don't think that the Mercator projection accurately represents the face of the Earth. And I don't think the azimuthal equidistant does either. The AE map, which I'll just simply call the azimuthal equidistant map, I'll just say AE because it's easier. But the AE map is most correct at the very center, and it gets less and less correct the further away you get from the center. So really none of the maps we have are accurate, and I just don't, I think it's great that Tiger Dan's looking at this because it is an issue. It's something that we need to solve, but to take that and say, anybody who says the Antarctic is on the outside or anyone who says the Antarctic doesn't exist is lying. I don't remember anyone saying it doesn't exist, but anyway, That's my 2 cents on that.
I'd like to jump in on that. He did come out and aggressively say that all flat earthers say that Antarctica doesn't exist, and that's just unlike him. I don't know him. I've seen his interviews. I've watched his, him on Patricia's show. I've watched all his videos. I'm a pretty good judge of character just by listening to the way people talk and the way they express themselves. And he seems like a very loving, religious, kind man, intelligent. But his argument of, these flights exist from South America to Australia, and they obviously fly over Antarctica because, look, here's pictures from windows. Well, that's not proof at all. I mean, there's sightseeing flights that I've seen video of where it kind of looks like the same thing. You know, who's to say that those pictures are from these flights? I took his information with the airport codes that he says. I put it in Expedia. I put all different dates in there, and it says we've searched 400 airlines, and there are no nonstop flights. Now, I know that there are some listed somewhere because I've seen the result come back before, but who is to say that airline technology has it's probably increased since the 1960s, although they haven't really shown us much. And who's to say that they don't have aircraft that can go 1,000 miles per hour, can break the speed of sound? The only thing they'd have to deal with is excessive fuel usage and a sonic boom, possibly. Maybe they found a way around it. And if you're going to fly, you know, if these maps are semi-right, I don't think that they're actually right, and Antarctica is the plane that surrounds our thermal pocket, who's to say that they don't fly south, fly over the ice, fly east or west until they get over to the other side, and then fly north to their location?
Well, I don't even think that's necessary, though, because if you look at even the model that Robotham was describing, and, you know, I don't just blindly agree with everything Robotham said, but, you know, he did make a lot of really excellent points in Zetetic Astronomy, which I've only read the original edition. I haven't read the expanded editions, but the model that he was describing was looking at you know, historical navigation, practical sailing charts, and the captain's logs and that sort of thing. And if you measure the distance between Australia and South America, it's only about 8,000 miles nautically, according to the model that Robotham was describing, which actually, if you add up all the distances of these far southern ports, you get, I think it's 22,000 miles at the average 45-degree latitude, which is just too darn big for a globe of the given proportions. So, you know, it's very good proof right there that there's something wrong with the conventional heliocentric model. But it also shows that such a flight could be done even at an average of 500 miles an hour. It would only take about 16 hours. And I think that by flying not exactly west, because remember, in Robotham's model, or the conventional flat Earth model, west is a curve. It's not a straight line. And so if you could just basically do a straight line instead of a curve, I could see them shaving off some of that distance and doing the flight comfortably in 13 hours.
Jonathan, I could agree with that 100%. The point I was kind of trying to make was Tiger Dan's videos were not like him. That was not, I'm not saying it wasn't him, it was unlike him. It was the opposite of who he is. So
yeah.
I would like to interject here a little bit, because I think I might have part of the reason why he is behaving the way he is. And I also would like to have Zen express this as well, because we both come from, you know, Christian backgrounds. And one of the things I've noticed from my own experience since I started doing this and started reaching out to folks like you, having you on my show, and expressing my conviction that the world is not a ball, and that I don't believe in the heliocentric model, and that I'm in line with the flat Earth geocentric model, is that I have had a lot of attacks from quote-unquote Christians. Now, I understand this might not be a really good reason for why he did it, but I'm trying to explain it just simply what might be the motive for why he pushed back so hard, because he's probably getting the snot kicked out of him like I am, and I can tell you, I'm sure that Zen's going through the same thing, and this issue and other issues from quote-unquote people that call themselves believers in our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ and behave the complete opposite. And I think it's this bogus argument that's thrown at us constantly that we are an embarrassment and that we are a distraction and that we are causing division and that we're making Christians, quote-unquote Christians, look like a joke. I don't know if that makes any sense to you, gentlemen, but I know from my own personal experience, and I would like to have Zen comment about that, and whether I agree with it or not, that's, at the end of the day, I would like to have Tiger Dan on to talk about it, because I think that my gut hunch, and only from my own. I mean, just today, attack from somebody that I wanted to be on my show that has a lot of great information about that other topic, about the Jesuits and their connections with Hollywood, and who have nothing to do with me because of the flat Earth. Because he, even though I didn't want to talk to him about that, I didn't want to talk about his work. He didn't want anything to do with me. Not going to mention his name. And then the day before, yesterday was another somebody that was a regular guest on my show who wanted to have anything to do with me. And says that you should call your show instead of Nothing But the Truth. What do you call it? Nothing but there's a search for the truth. He said you should call your show The Search for the Truth. You know what I mean? It just went on this rampage. So I wanted to have Zen to share his experience, and I know at the end of the day this is not the explanation for it until Tiger actually talks about it. But I do think that part of this is the amount of social pressure in his own community about this. Does that make sense, gentlemen? And then Zen, would you comment on that?
It's snapping because of pressure. This is, to me, just seems like something more. But before I got cut off, I just want to put up one last point. Was I totally agree with Jonathan that we don't know which map is right. That they're all kind of wrong. But the only thing that we know for sure is that we don't live on a spinning ball. I mean, that's beyond a shadow of a doubt. So I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah, what I was going to say is to people, sorry to interrupt, and this will just be real brief, but to people who think, that this is a joke and who call you a joke for talking about this, the joke is...
Hello, this is Michael Adams, and this is Nothing But the Truth. One man's journey to find it. It is January the 11th, 2016, and we are going to have a roundtable discussion on the flat Earth, and we are going to have Jonathan from the Morgile, the YouTube channel, and Glowbusters. We also have David Weiss, and David has a ton of things that he's in. He's got the Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole, his YouTube channel, website, podcast, I believe. He's got Ball Earth Skeptics on on Facebook. And then we got was turning out to be a regular and a friend, becoming a close friend, I consider, somebody I admire and respect a lot, Zen Garcia. And, of course, Zen, he's got all sorts of things going on. He has, Zen, Endeavor Freedom YouTube channel. He's got the FallenAngelsTV.com. You can find him on...
.tv.
.tv.
Yep.
Is it okay, my apologies. And, you also have your two radio shows. Tell us about that as well. So we don't...
Yeah, I do Truth Frequency Radio, Saturdays, 6 to 8 p.m., Secrets Revealed, and Wednesday evenings on Revolution Radio, Momentary Zen, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern.
And plus you've written 9 books, and your 9th book is pertaining to the discussion of tonight. David, did I miss anything? I'm sure I missed a couple things about what you're up to.
I have the Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole podcast that's available on iTunes and SoundCloud. My Facebook pages are Ball Earth Skeptic, all things flat Earth, and Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole, of course, and then also Exposing the Big Three, which is exclusively 9/11 Sandy Hook in Boston. And everything is linked up on deepinsidetherabbithole.com.
Thank you. Jonathan, did I miss anything on your end that you need to be?
Nope. Just my YouTube channel, the Morgile, and that's pretty much it.
Okay, great.
And the soon coming book.
Yeah, the soon coming book one day.
Yeah.
So I think this is going to be a very interesting show. How it will turn out, I guess it's going to be a free flow discussion about the flat Earth and many of the aspects that pertain to it. I just want to mention a little bit about this week. I know that there's a kind of an upset and a stir with some of the things that Tiger Dan, his recent videos, and first of all, I've reached out to Tiger and invited him to come on the show to express his point of view. But I just want to say that I do appreciate a lot of what Tiger Dan has done. I think everyone on this panel does as well. And I think that whatever the misunderstanding